I was the most inconspicuous concubine in the palace, yet the emperor shared my pain. At the flower-viewing banquet, I offended the arrogant and domineering noble consort Yun, who kicked me square in the chest. Having suffered from heart palpitations since childhood, I collapsed, my forehead striking the stone pavement. Filled with despair, I braced myself to be thrown into the punishment bureau, but the passing emperor clutched his head and rushed over, exclaiming, "So it's you. The one who's been making me faint during court sessions again and again. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day." Now the story begins. Beyond the screen, voices murmured. The emperor's deep, melodious voice inquired, "Why does she still not wake?" The imperial physician answered with trembling reverence, "The forehead wound is superficial. What keeps Lady Jiang unconscious is a malady of the heart. How might this illness be cured? This illness flares up with any agitation and may be difficult to cure completely. With careful nurturing, there might be some improvement." After the imperial physician withdrew, the emperor lifted the bed curtain. I quickly shut my eyes to feign sleep as he sat silently by the bedside. After a long silence, I could no longer maintain the pretense. Opening my eyes at last, I whispered, "Your Majesty." This was the first time I had spoken to him since entering the palace. The man before me possessed an ethereal grace and peerless beauty. Just as I was about to thank him for saving my life, he suddenly reached out and gripped my throat. My body froze instantly. Had he saved me only to strangle me with his own hands? Stars danced before my eyes. At the brink of suffocation, he released his grip, and I burst into violent coughing. To my surprise, he too clutched his throat and began coughing, mirroring my actions exactly. I seemed to realize something. After we came to our senses, he pinched me everywhere: arms, thighs, cheeks, practically my entire body. His expression grew increasingly gloomy, while I became more and more delighted. Finally, he tugged at my hair, rubbing his temples with his fingers as if resigning himself to fate. The emperor sighed in sorrow and indignation. "Heaven is blind. I, your emperor, actually share your pain," though this matter was indeed hard to comprehend. Hearing his decisive words, I couldn't help but curl the corners of my lips. My father was a minor official under Minister Pei, and with 3 daughters in the family, I had been the sickly one since childhood. When Minister Pei ordered my father to send one daughter to the palace to assist Consort Li, the physician had once declared I wouldn't live past 20, so I volunteered for this duty. I thought my life was about to end in the palace, but unexpectedly, heaven took pity and sent me such a powerful talisman. The emperor's anger grew fiercer. "How dare you still laugh?" Remembering that the man before me was the legendary cold-blooded monarch who had killed his father and brothers to ascend the throne, I quickly suppressed my smile. I'm sorry, this concubine truly doesn't know how this happened." The emperor confined me to a side chamber of his imperial bedchamber, the Hall of Eternal Life, where countless skilled and extraordinary individuals came to visit. This situation is something I've never heard of before. After yet another white-bearded Taoist priest shook his head and left, the emperor remained silent with a grim expression, the words questioning life itself seemingly carved on his forehead. I sat quietly nearby, eating grapes, far more accepting of the situation than he was. After all, as a neglected concubine in the palace, my survival until now has relied entirely on some rather unusual circumstances. The meals delivered from the imperial kitchen were often spoiled, yet sometimes they miraculously transformed into delicious delicacies after sitting overnight. The winter charcoal rations were withheld, yet my unheated chamber remained as warm as a spring day. Though I've endured many hardships, there's always been unexpected relief in adversity, for which I'm truly grateful. I often wonder if there might be an old immortal living in the imperial palace, one who can hear the wishes of every devout soul. At the emperor's urgent summons, the wandering state preceptor rushed back to court without a moment's delay. The state preceptor was a young man in his 20s, wearing a pointed hat and tying his sash into a bow, his every move utterly lacking in decorum. The playing cards he fiddled with were painted with figures sporting high noses, deep-set eyes, and outlandish costumes. The Grand Preceptor paced back and forth in the hall, shaking his head. "Your Majesty and Lady Jiang are destined for 3 lifetimes, yet love has been slow to blossom between you. Thus, the heavens have decreed that your Majesty shall share Lady Jiang's pain, to strengthen the bond between you." The Emperor scoffed, glancing at me disdainfully. Destined for 3 lifetimes with this little girl. I felt a surge of irritation even if he looked down on me. Did he have to make it so obvious? The court astrologer spoke many more words I couldn't comprehend. Under his lengthy discourse, the emperor's expression softened. like a lost steed finding its way. Yet as a ruler, he naturally wouldn't want to possess a weakness. Is there any way to resolve this matter? The Grand Tutor seemed to have been waiting for these very words, hastily producing a pair of phoenix and dragon jade pendants from his sleeve. According to him, the floating patterns on the two pendants represented our mutual affection. When both patterns became completely filled, the peculiar bond between us could be dissolved. Do you know our given name? The Emperor, who had been reviewing memorials with bowed head in the imperial study, looked up and asked me, Zhao Yu. The Emperor nodded slightly and continued asking, what do I like to eat? I shook my head and whispered, this concubine does not know. So far, I had only met him 3 times, how could I possibly know his preferences? He threw down his pen, stood up, and came over to question me. You don't even understand me, how can you make me fall in love with you? His fingers tapped lightly on the desk. These records contain my life story and preferences. Memorize them within 5 days. I glanced at the towering stack of books beside me and nearly wept, there were far too many. Why doesn't he try to understand me and recite together? Zhao Yu seemed to have guessed what I was thinking and said slowly, Jiang Ning, 3rd daughter of Jiang Daohuai, a clerk in the Ministry of Revenue. Her mother comes from a merchant family. She has 2 elder sisters and 1 elder brother. The family lives on Chongping Street. She has been frail and sickly since childhood and entered the palace last May. At the age of 5, she went missing for 7 days before being found. When she was 8, she cried so hard over the death of her pet rabbit that she fainted. He leisurely took a sip of tea and asked, would you like to hear more from me? As the Emperor, Zhao Yu was always busy with state affairs. While he reviewed memorials, he would confine me to the imperial study to recite his achievements and preferences. To the outside world, I'm now a favored consort who can freely enter and leave the imperial study, but in reality, I'm just a pitiful soul burning the midnight oil. How utterly dull. The historians have painted Zhao Yu as if he were the greatest figure of all time. Perhaps he truly is wise and mighty, and his life experiences are indeed rich, but faced with this endless stream of flattery, I still can't help but say, what shamelessness. What kind of decent person would carry this around? So I flipped through book after book out of sheer boredom, skimming 10 lines at a glance, hoping the knowledge would somehow force its way into my brain. The moon climbed the willow branches, yet Zhao Yu showed no intention of taking his evening meal. Having starved through irregular meals for the past year, my already weak stomach now ached terribly at the slightest hunger. Zhao Yu was still quietly handling government affairs by the side. What about the promised shared pain? Why did he seem completely unaffected? Was this connection failing, or did the pain lessen when it reached him? Clutching my stomach and breaking out in cold sweat from the pain, he finally furrowed his brows and looked at me. What's wrong now? The pain grew increasingly intense. Leaning against the desk, I couldn't utter a word. Why isn't this connection more responsive? He stood up and walked toward me. Ordering someone outside to summon the imperial physician, Zhao Yu carried me to the soft couch, his expression grim, as if he too was in considerable pain. Anger knitted his brows as he said in a low voice, are you mute? Why didn't you speak up sooner if you were unwell? I couldn't help but want to cry. He was the legendary king of hell who killed without batting an eye, always cold and menacing. How could I dare say anything to him? The imperial physician arrived quickly and stepped forward to take my pulse. Lady Jiang's condition is due to a stomach ailment. She must not skip any of the 3 daily meals, and her diet should be kept light. Zhao Yu's eyes flashed with impatience. How many more illnesses does she have that I don't know about? The imperial physician rambled on and on, concluding that I might have all the common ailments. Zhao Yu's face grew increasingly dark. I sipped my porridge in small mouthfuls while Zhao Yu stared at me unblinkingly from the side, making me extremely uncomfortable. Unable to bear it any longer, I asked, why is your majesty looking at me like this? He sneered coldly. I was merely curious how you managed to grow up like this. I felt wronged. I have parents and elder siblings who love me dearly. They've all treated me well. I'm the treasure of my entire family. I was raised with the utmost care and devotion by my family. What happened in mid-June last year? The lotus flowers in the imperial garden have bloomed, and Lady Ru performed a stunning dance at the palace banquet. The pear pastries served at the banquet were delicious. I didn't understand the context and cautiously replied. Zhao Yu grew impatient. I'm asking why you fainted. I was hunting in the royal grounds when I fell off my horse. Consort Yun's kitten fell into the pond, and she asked me to rescue it. What about July? The imperial kitchen sent spoiled food for several days in a row. I had stomach pains. August. I wore the same color dress as Consort Jin. She made me kneel on the palace pathway to beg forgiveness. Zhao Yu scoffed lightly. Weak and easily bullied, I lowered my head in silence. Shouldn't this be something for him, the emperor, to reflect upon? Why doesn't he rectify the fawning over the powerful and bullying the weak that's rampant in the imperial harem? A palace maid brought up the medicine, and I drank it all in one go. Remembering the candied fruits my mother used to make, I felt a pang of sorrow. Tears I couldn't hold back fell into the medicine bowl. Zhao Yu mercifully allowed me to return and rest, instructing me to report to the imperial study tomorrow and carefully devise a strategy to win him over. With a grand gesture, Zhao Yu bestowed upon me the position of Jiaoyi. He said that since I was nominally his favored consort, the rank of beauty was far too low and would damage his reputation. Your Highness, you've truly made it big. Little Lotus looked at me with tearful eyes. Zhao Yu had transferred her from the Zhongsue Palace, where I used to live, to serve me now, for the past year. The two of us had relied on each other for survival, promoted 3 ranks in just 7 days. Though His Majesty rarely visits the inner palace, he has arranged for you to stay in the side chamber of his sleeping quarters and granted you access to the imperial study. She burst into loud sobs. This servant never dreamed such a day would come. It feels just like a dream, I sighed. It does feel like a dream, and who knows when I might wake up. The moon was bright and the stars sparse. A gentle breeze brushed against the window lattice. I dared not sleep, still racking my brains over how to explain my plan to Zhao Yu tomorrow. Xiao Lian, how can I make His Majesty fall in love with me? Xiaolian looked puzzled. Your Highness has such rich experience. Isn't His Majesty already utterly bewitched by you? I felt helpless, yet couldn't explain to her the bizarre connection between Zhao Yu and me. Before I could speak, Xiaolian suddenly had an epiphany. Your Highness is truly far-sighted. Securing favor in advance is always wise. Your Highness should cater to His Majesty's preferences and learn from the methods of previously favored consorts, adopting their strengths. Xiaolian whispered to me, this servant has heard that Lady Zhen of Qingxian Palace is His Majesty's white moonlight. Unable to bear seeing his white moonlight entangled in palace intrigues, His Majesty deliberately shows little favor to her in public. Xiaolian, full of enthusiasm, said she would go inquire about Lady Zhen's habits and preferences tomorrow. I told Zhao Yu I would strive to understand him, cater to his preferences, and do my best to become the person he likes. He remained non-committal about this. 5 days passed quickly, and Zhao Yu began testing my recitation. He didn't look at me, just wrote with effortless grace as the thick ink spread across the rice paper. I was extremely nervous, answering haltingly, but seeing he showed no reaction, I gradually calmed my nerves. After all, I'd long since developed my own exclusive answering technique. A few key facts about his achievements, then expanding his praises into 500 words. At the very least I could answer fluently and secure a basic score without fail. But why was he asking me so many trivial little details about daily life? What is the first cup of tea I shall drink in autumn? Do I prefer soft peaches or crisp peaches? My mind went completely blank. I could only reply randomly while pretending to have read properly. He looked up at me with a cold gaze. You didn't remember the most important part, I replied timidly. The scrolls didn't seem to mention these things. He stood up, pulled out a few pages from beneath the thick stack of scrolls, tapped the table, and judging by the handwriting, it appeared to be written by his own hand. I must have missed it. I want to cry. I memorized everything, yet somehow missed the key points. What else have you been doing? I was bewildered. Wasn't reciting texts in the imperial study enough? You only spend 3 hours daily in the imperial study. What about the remaining time? Surely you're not telling me you did nothing else? His icy gaze swept over me as he demanded coldly, why aren't you trying harder? Quick-witted, I replied. Your humble consort has also studied fashion and makeup. Good, share your insights. He lowered his head to resume writing. I racked my brains trying to expand on the meager information Xiaolian had gathered about Consort Zhen's preferences. A sky-blue dress with golden hairpins, how utterly vulgar. How could willow leaf eyebrows possibly match vermilion lip rouge? Your taste is atrocious. Finally unable to bear it any longer, he ordered Xiaodezi to fetch some paintings of beautiful women for me to study carefully. Truth be told, it wasn't bad at all. Looking at paintings of beauties was far more interesting than memorizing Zhao Yu's deeds. I told Xiaolian about Zhao Yu's reaction, but she remained firmly convinced that Zhen Pin was his white moonlight. His Majesty must dislike your Highness being a substitute. It seems this tactic won't work. I don't believe it, but judging by His Majesty's expression, he genuinely dislikes those outfits, Xiaolian said with certainty. Brother Chen Feng wouldn't lie to me. Who is Chen Feng? Xiaolian's face flushed slightly. He's a guard at Qingxian Palace. Under my patient persuasion, Xiaolian finally confessed to me that she had fallen in love. The Qingxian Palace was far from Zhao Yu's residence, forcing the two of them into a long-distance relationship. I caught a cold, and Zhao Yu ended up getting infected too, every day. He would stare at me with a haggard face, making sure I drank my medicine. I often think he's worse off than me. I can languish in bed without a care, while he suffers my pain yet still has to work. After I recovered, Zhao Yu followed the doctor's orders and had Xiaolian accompany me on daily walks. He even threatened that if I fell ill again, he'd take it out on my family. His threats cowed me into complete submission. While strolling by the Tay Pond, I unexpectedly encountered Consort Li. She glared at me with unfriendly eyes. I truly don't know what father was thinking, sending you into the palace to compete for favor with me. I dared not speak carelessly, bowing my head. This concubine wouldn't presume. If not for me, you should have died in the palace last year. Do you remember why you entered the palace? I replied with utmost respect, to assist your highness, not to mention that my father works under minister pay. Last year when I was sick and nearly died. It was the noble consort who sent the imperial physician to see me. The noble consort raised her striking eyebrows, quite obedient. I see. Her delicate nail guards brushed against my cheek. After the noble consort left, I hadn't gone far when I encountered Consort Yun, Zhao Yu's precious and pampered cousin. I forgot to check the almanac before going out today. Consort Yun steadied her hair bun and glared at me. I truly don't know what spell you've cast on my cousin to make someone of your lowly status sit equal with this palace. Ignoring her words, I tried to detour around her, but she grabbed my arm. What kind of attitude is this? Do you think a brief period of favor allows you to rise above this palace? I didn't want to tangle with her, so I withdrew my arm, but she took the opportunity to fall to the ground, putting on a perfect act of being wronged, before I could react. She quickly got up and slapped me across the face. My cheek stung, but I couldn't hit her back. Every concubine in this palace was someone I couldn't afford to offend. What's all this commotion? A familiar deep voice rang out. She pushed me over. Cousin, you must stand up for me. Last time at the flower viewing banquet, she also knocked me down, yet you took her side. I won't accept this. Consort Yun tearfully complained to Zhao Yu. Zhao Yu casually glanced at the tearful beauty, then walked behind me, pressing a folding fan against my waist. He whispered in my ear, "This is the first time I've ever been slapped. You truly deserve death. Hit her back, and I won't punish you." Lady Yun was still sobbing when I stepped forward and slapped her, her face filled with disbelief. After a stunned pause, she raised her hand to strike back. Zhao Yu caught her wrist. Lady Yun has behaved improperly. She is confined to her quarters for 3 years. I was shocked. 3 years. He really went all out, but I certainly wouldn't sympathize with Consort Yun. When I followed Zhao Yu back to the palace, the servants had already laid out a table full of dishes. My eyes lit up when I saw the cloud-sliced cakes. Zhao Yu scoffed. Is that all it takes to please you? He simply didn't understand the saying that nothing should be neglected except love and good food. The dishes were delicious, but it hurt terribly whenever I moved my face. It seems I'm not destined to enjoy this today. Zhao Yu called for someone to bring ice, forbidding me to eat and making me apply it to my face first, because he was in pain too. He asked me, "Why would you just take a slap in the face for nothing?" Of course it's because of you, marrying so many women, doting on the ones you like for a few days, then leaving the others to fend for themselves. I naturally didn't dare voice my true thoughts, so I just said, "Consort Yun is the daughter of the Grand Commandant, your cousin, a woman of noble status." Zhao Yu glanced at me. "Haven't you ever thought of fighting for yourself?" "I don't understand. One cannot choose their birth." I paused, then said firmly, "Besides, my father is a good man. I don't regret being his daughter." Zhao Yu was drinking tea when he heard this and choked, coughing several times. He laughed in frustration. "Hopelessly foolish. Such a golden opportunity is right before you, yet you fail to see it. You deserve to be bullied your whole life." After the swelling and redness on my face subsided, Zhao Yu asked me to dress up and meet him. He wanted to inspect the results of my studies. But the truth is, I don't know how to do makeup. My hands are clumsy. Xiao Lian, a young palace maid who entered the palace just last year, also has clumsy hands. The painted screens and fans in the hall look exquisitely crafted. But they all belong to the emperor. Would Zhao Yu get angry if I asked someone to do my homework for me? I decided to do it myself in the end, to at least show I have the right attitude. We got up before Zhao Yu even went to court. The result of 2 clumsy people working all morning was something so ugly it could make you cry. Zhao Yu was very dissatisfied with my learning progress. He let out a long sigh. "Qing Luo, take her to wash her face." Surprisingly, he wasn't angry. after removing my makeup. I stood before Zhao Yu again. He was painting. Thick ink bled across the paper while light washes outlined forms, the fragrance of ink swirling with each stroke of his brush. When he wasn't being fierce with me, he actually looked rather gentle and refined. From now on, we'll follow this arrangement. The woman in the painting had willow leaf eyebrows and eyes that shimmered like spring water. Zhao Yu's portrait of me inexplicably carried an air of celestial grace. He called for someone to bring rouge and powder, instructing me to make myself up like the painting in the mirror. I wanted to cry but had no tears. What I lacked wasn't a good stylist, but a pair of skilled hands for makeup, since I wouldn't be able to pull it off anyway, and he seemed in a decent mood at the moment. I mustered my courage. I'm sorry, I actually don't know how to do makeup. He sighed. Fine, it's my bad luck. He decided to teach me makeup himself. We were so close that I felt uneasy. Be good, don't move. His hands cupped my face, his tone tender and lingering, and for a moment, I was dazed. I enjoy watching women play the zither. Consort Rong is skilled at the zither. I enjoy listening to women sing. Concubine Ru's voice is heavenly. I prefer intelligent women. If the noble consort Shu were not a woman, she could surely have topped the imperial examinations. Zhao Yu looked at me with considerable displeasure. But there is no curse between me and them. I felt I would never make Zhao Yu fall in love with me in this lifetime, and it seemed he thought the same. He was obstinate and self-willed, believing nothing in this world could challenge him, not even love, so he decided to personally teach me how to pursue him. He had me learn the zither from court musicians and summoned famous performers to teach me singing. The most absurd part was that he even had the grand tutor instruct me in statecraft. According to him, if I could grasp even a fraction of the treacherous undercurrents in court politics, then pretending to be clever in daily life wouldn't be difficult for me. While I practiced during lessons, he would handle government affairs nearby, leaving me no room for slacking off. The moment my attention wandered, he would immediately clear his throat and glare at me coldly. Indeed, the concentration levels between people cannot be compared on the same day. Xiao Lian said that both inside and outside the palace, rumors spread that I was a bewitching concubine who brought disaster to the nation, seducing the emperor to indulge in music and revelry with me in the imperial study every day. I wanted to cry. What kind of bewitching concubine ends up in such a state as mine? I learned very slowly, often meeting Zhao Yu's exasperated gaze that seemed to say, I despair of your incompetence. A peace like mist and clouds over Xiao and Xiong rivers. I practiced for over 10 days, yet my playing remained halting and utterly devoid of beauty. I've had enough. Zhao Yu could no longer bear the noise and decided to personally teach me. The Guqin demands strength without awareness, seeking power within relaxation. You must neither press the strings too lightly nor pluck them with brute force. With just a few words, Zhao Yu pinpointed why my playing sounded so unpleasant. His hand half holds mine, adjusting my finger positioning. Under his guidance, a light and graceful melody slowly flows from my fingertips. The sun must be rising from the west today. A clear, melodious female voice sounded as a beautiful, enchanting woman walked in, smiling at us. The visitor was none other than Princess Gonghua, the legendary woman who was said to have countless male consorts yet managed to captivate both the Prime Minister and the Grand General. Behind her followed a handsome man dressed in crimson official robes. The princess took my hand and led me out of the imperial study, settling down in a pavilion. With a face full of curiosity, she studied me and asked what I had been doing with Zhao Yu all these days. I said I had read many books in the imperial study and practiced the zither for a very, very long time. Recounting every detail of my recent days of study, the princess was shocked. How could someone claim to like a young girl yet make her learn how to please him? The princess expressed deep sympathy for my plight. So why on earth did he do this? With a woeful expression, I replied, perhaps His Majesty thought this would make him fall in love with me. The Grand Princess thought Zhao Yu and I were racing down the wrong path at full speed, so she immediately taught me some methods for manipulating men with ease, which left me blushing furiously. When surrounded by petty people on all sides, what should one do? Ancient texts say, a noble man is cautious when alone, and one must never wallow in the mire with petty people. Zhao Yu was quizzing me on my studies again, and I answered absent-mindedly. The noble consort ordered me to lead Zhao Yu to the lakeside at Baibo Lake by the hour of Shu tonight, and I was racking my brains over how to accomplish this task. Zhao Yu tapped my head with a book. Wrong. What if your former benefactor becomes your enemy? I repeated the words my childhood tutor had taught me. To not repay kindness is to be less than human. This matter can be handled by separating the two aspects. Wrong again. Oh, then what's the right one? I asked him gloomily. Better I betray the world than let the world betray me, he chuckled lightly. As long as the goal is achieved, why stick to the so-called gentleman's code? Jiang Ning, you're no gentleman, alright? If we don't go now, we'll miss the perfect timing. I flashed him an ingratiating smile. Your Majesty, the moonlight is splendid tonight. How about we take a stroll? Trying to slack off again. You haven't reviewed today's lessons yet. He's really strict. I kept pushing. But Your Majesty, I've already memorized everything you've taught me so far. Doesn't that count as having learned quite a bit? It's not entirely impossible. How do you plan to repay me? Zhao Yu closed the book and looked at me with great interest. The princess's words echoed in my ears. Contrast is crucial, and sometimes boldness yields the best results. So I gazed into his pitch-black eyes and slightly upturned outer corners, mustered my courage, and kissed him. After all, I wasn't bound by any gentlemanly code of conduct. Zhao Yu clearly hadn't expected such a move from me. He raised his eyebrows in surprise. Unfortunately, my courage didn't last long. The moment he stirred slightly, I immediately released him and hastily lowered my head. Zhao Yu strode swiftly through the sea of flowers. I struggled to keep up. This was hardly what one would call a leisurely stroll. Breathing heavily, I tugged at his sleeve. Your Majesty, slow down a little. I can't keep up. His footsteps slowed, but I didn't release his sleeve, determined to take the initiative as I pulled him toward Emerald Wave Lake. So I led him around artificial hill after artificial hill, down the long palace pathways, until we were thoroughly lost. I'd forgotten that since childhood, I'd never been good at remembering directions. When we found ourselves back beneath the same great tree once more, Zhao Yu finally lost patience. Just where exactly are you trying to go? I pondered for a moment before giving him a faint smile. Your Majesty, do you know the way to Baibo Lake? He looked at me with an expression reserved for idiots for a brief second, yet still took my hand and led me forward. The surroundings were utterly silent, with no signs of life except for Zhao Yu and me staring wide-eyed at each other. Though getting lost had wasted much time, the hour of Shu hadn't yet passed. Something must have gone wrong at some point. Surely the imperial consort wouldn't stand me up. Your comprehension is too poor. It seems I must teach you personally. Neither moonlight nor evening breeze could shake Zhao Yu's determination to become an educator, as he enthusiastically elaborated his next teaching plan. As for me, I was looking around, trying to spot anything unusual on this tranquil lake surface. Are you even listening to what I'm saying? Ah, found it. He looked at me coldly. What did you find? Gazing at the faint flickering lights across the lake, I realized the imperial consort was on the opposite shore. Normally, one would reach Emerald Wave Lake through the Imperial Garden, arriving at the southern shore full of lotus flowers, but since I had dragged Zhao Yu around in a daze for so long, he chose the nearest route, and now we're on the northern shore. It's definitely too late to go back now. How can I make up for it? Quick-witted as ever, I pointed to a small boat moored by the lakeside. Your Majesty, how about a moonlit boat ride? And how do you plan to repay me this time? I flusteredly gave him a quick kiss. Consider it repaid. No more dawdling. We're really running out of time. Rowing will take quite a while too. Zhao Yu shot a glance at Xiao Dezi standing not far away. The young eunuch immediately signaled the guards to come forward and untie the small boat's ropes, then looked at us with concern. This boat is really tiny, only big enough for 2 people. There's no one left to help Zhao Yu and me row? Xiao Dezi tentatively asked. Your Majesty, shall this servant fetch a larger boat? Absolutely not. By the time a big boat arrives, the opportunity will have long passed, I said softly. Small boats have their own charm. What matters most for this rendezvous is privacy. Your concubine dislikes being disturbed by unnecessary people. Zhao Yu remained unmoved. I closed my eyes and took the plunge. If Your Majesty dislikes rowing, this humble consort can do it instead. Truth be told, I didn't know how to row at all. But it probably wasn't that difficult, right? No need. I fear drowning, the Emperor said. In the end, Zhao Yu still boarded the boat with me, and what's more, he was the one rowing. I felt a twinge of guilt in my heart. If a woman admires Your Majesty, that wouldn't be strange, would it? He rowed the boat with effort, replying indifferently. Not very modest, I thought, and pressed on. And if someone acted as a matchmaker in this, that person wouldn't be unforgivable, right? He let out a cold laugh. That's not necessarily true. I cleared my throat twice and changed the subject. Your Majesty, the lotus flowers on the southern shore are in full bloom. Let's go take a look. With an expression that seemed to say, let me see what you're up to, he rowed toward the vast expanse of lotus flowers in the distance. From deep within the lotus flowers, a man's voice could be heard. How does it feel serving in the Hall of Eternal Life? Everything is fine. Except I'm too far from Brother Chenfeng. I was startled. It was Xiaolian and that guard. I lowered my voice. A gentleman helps others fulfill their wishes. Your Majesty should not spoil a good thing. Zhao Yu's gaze turned hostile, his thin lips parting as if to speak. I quickly leaned forward to cover his mouth, but misjudged the force. A sharp slap rang out. Before I could properly register the fire in Zhao Yu's eyes, I realized something terrible was about to happen. My violent movement disrupted the boat's balance. It swayed twice before capsizing. We both tumbled into the water, Zhao Yu and I. Such a commotion naturally alarmed the young couple I had been trying to protect. When they pushed aside the lotus leaves, they were greeted with this awkward scene. The Emperor holding on to me as I flailed in the water, attempting to right the overturned boat but failing miserably. Your Majesty, Your Highness. In the end, all four of us ended up crammed onto a boat originally meant for two, slowly making our way forward. I felt like death might be just around the corner. No one dared to speak unless Zhao Yu spoke first. A deathly silence hung in the air, broken only by the sound of poor Chen Feng rowing the boat and my uncontrollable shivering. Though it was summer, the wind blew so fiercely that the cold cut deep. I glanced at Chen Feng's expression. He seemed immensely grateful that Zhao Yu hadn't forced him and Xiao Lian off the boat, but I suspected this wasn't due to any particular generosity on Zhao Yu's part. He simply didn't want to row the boat himself. Approaching the southern shore, I witnessed the imperial consort's grand display. Floating lanterns on the lake shimmered like stars surrounding the bright moon, while an ornate pleasure boat stood majestically upon the waters. We boarded the vessel to find it lavishly stocked with delicacies. Its mast hung high with lanterns that created an atmosphere of pure enchantment. Not far away, noticing we had drifted too far from shore, Xiaodezi came rowing over with some guards in tow. Everything finally returned to its rightful course. Seeing Zhao Yu and me in such a state, our friends present were utterly stunned. After coming ashore, the noble lady gracefully approached beneath the great tree. My heart ached with bitterness. Would she still accept Zhao Yu, drenched and bedraggled as he was? The imperial consort was shocked and hesitated before speaking. Your Majesty, perhaps you could change your robes at my palace. Zhao Yu remained silent, his expression frighteningly cold. As he turned on his heel and strode away, the consort's inquiring gaze fell upon me. Without waiting for her to finish speaking, I bowed apologetically and hurried after Zhao Yu. After returning to the palace and bathing, I finally felt warm again, though somewhat dizzy with a slight headache. While Huashan was still drying my hair, Zhao Yu, now properly groomed, came in to settle accounts with me. Jiang Ning. He ground out my name through clenched teeth, gripping my chin to force me to meet his gaze. How do you explain today's events? My mind went blank, unable to conjure any excuses, leaving me staring at him helplessly. The fury in his eyes intensified. So you just sold me out like that? I didn't receive any benefits. How can this be considered selling him out? I merely did Her Highness the Imperial Consort a small favor, and it wasn't even successful, I muttered in defense. Her Highness the Imperial Consort is His Majesty's concubine, so His Majesty visiting her doesn't count as me selling him out. He laughed in anger. Fine, very good. Zhao Yu casually waved his hand, knocking over the entire dressing table with a loud crash. My heart trembled, I couldn't catch my breath, my vision darkened in waves, and I could no longer stand. It seems I'm having another episode. This body always seems to abandon me before my consciousness does. Zhao Yu panicked for a moment, swiftly catching my falling body with quick reflexes, his face turning pale as he held me while half kneeling on the ground. Zhao Yu was furious because he had been implicated by me yet again. The imperial physician hurried in to take my pulse. His face full of concern. Her Highness is suffering from a recurrence of heart palpitations, compounded by exposure to cold. This condition must not be startled. Frequent episodes can lead to irregular heart rhythms. Daily precautions must be taken with great care. Zhao Yu waved his hand to dismiss the imperial physician. I lay weakly on the bed, my hair and clothes soaked in cold sweat, feeling utterly miserable. One should only undertake what they're capable of, can't be beaten. Can't be scolded, can't even be frightened when making mistakes. Jiang Ning, you're truly troublesome. Xiaolian brought the medicine over, and Zhao Yu took the bowl, saying coldly, drink it. He reached out to me, and I shrank back. This only angered him further. Ignoring my reaction, he half lifted me into his arms. In my haste, I took a sip but choked, coughing violently. The medicine bowl tipped over and shattered on the floor. Zhao Yu patted my back lightly, and when I looked up, I met his impatient gaze. All the grievances I had endured since entering the palace seemed to collapse at this moment. I couldn't hold back my tears, and large drops fell onto the front of my robe. When I was little, Mother said I was her most cherished treasure, precious, and therefore more fragile than most. I believed that for many years, but I've always been truly troublesome. Zhao Yu sighed softly. Don't repay undeserved kindness. When others bully you, they never consider karma. Why should you keep in mind favors that may not even be intentional? He wiped away my tears, suddenly becoming uncharacteristically gentle. I won't be harsh with you anymore. All right, don't cry, or soon both our eyes will start hurting. Zhao Yu truly stopped being harsh with me, but he also no longer allowed me to visit the imperial study. He moved me into the palace of gathered elegance and tossed me a code of conduct with a whopping 620 rules to memorize by heart. From daily routines to the ways of palace life, this code of conduct could be said to encompass everything. He even wanted to teach me palace intrigue, truly befitting an emperor. After all, few could seriously teach others how to compete for their own favor. I often wanted to cry from memorizing it. How did he manage to write something so lengthy and awkward? On the 10th day of receiving the code of conduct, when Zhao Yu still hadn't come to test me on reciting it, I decided to let myself off the hook. With a sense of doomed certainty, I played leaf cards with the palace maids and read them storybooks. The storybooks were sent by the Grand Princess, and the women in them were all passionate, bold, and unrestrained. Sometimes when I got tired of reading, I'd let the palace maids share the gossip they knew, turning the storytelling session into a grand feast of juicy rumors. As for Zhao Yu, he was undoubtedly the epicenter of gossip. After the Pingling calamity, Miss Wanning was forced to marry far away, while His Majesty, obeying his father's command, went off to the battlefield. The late emperor wanted him to die on horseback. One went south, the other north, separated by the heavens from then on. Yuna from the imperial kitchen vividly recounted this tear-jerking tale, leaving all the young palace maids present in tears. Yet, my heart remained utterly unmoved. This wasn't just because Zhao Yu's image in this story differed greatly from what I knew of him, but also because I had just learned a few days prior that the reason Zhao Yu and I fell into Bibo Lake was due to our intimate activities on a small boat. Your Majesty fell into the water with consort Jiang's red mandarin duck undergarment still hanging from his waist. When I heard these words, I wanted to die on the spot. I could no longer enjoy the drama with light-hearted amusement. 2 months passed in a flash, and as the maple leaves in the palace turned red, the autumn hunting season arrived. The mighty procession advanced through the endless mountain ranges. Beyond the bustle and liveliness of the capital, the autumn scenery in the outskirts was picturesque. After crossing several mountain peaks in succession, I began to feel exhausted. Clutching my faintly aching stomach, my head slightly dizzy, I listlessly leaned against the carriage wall, lost in random thoughts. Why hasn't Zhao Yu come to find me? Has he discovered some new method to sever our connection? After the connection is broken, how will he deal with me? Never mind. When life gives you joy, drink it deep. If there's wine today, get drunk today. Being able to live such happy days in the palace for so long was already an unexpected joy. Jiang Ning, you haven't listened to a single word I've said. A clear, cold voice came through as Zhao Yu lifted the curtain and boarded the carriage. Your Majesty. What brings you here? Since he wasn't very sensitive to pain, normally this level of discomfort wouldn't affect him. Without a word, he pulled me into his embrace, his warm hand resting on my stomach as he gently massaged it, then miraculously produced a tangerine-scented sachet. The subtle sweetness refreshed my mind, easing the dizziness somewhat. Zhao Yu asked in a deep voice, "What is the 73rd article of the Code of Conduct?" I mumbled sullenly, "This concubine is guilty." "This concubine does not know, Article 73, just look at this. Is this a question a human would ask? If you're feeling unwell, remember to tell me immediately." "Oh, okay." Zhao Yu stared down at me for a long moment, as if explaining himself. "Jiang Ning, I've been very busy lately. Since I couldn't ride horses or shoot arrows, I spent most of my time in the hunting grounds reading storybooks. One day, as I sat on a large rock vividly reading The Arrogant Physician Challenges the Cold Emperor to Xiaolian, the princess and the imperial preceptor suddenly appeared in a flurry. The princess bent down, poked my cheek, and smiled gently at me. "You're almost finished with the storybook, aren't you, now that you've built the theoretical foundation? The next step is to put it into practice." I instinctively glanced at the book in my hand. Getting someone drunk, drugging them, administering medicine. How could I possibly dare to do such things? I meekly said, This doesn't seem quite right." The imperial preceptor standing nearby also wore an expression of utter disagreement, indignantly saying, "Practice. What they should be doing is falling in love. Falling in love. Does the princess understand?" The princess gave a light snort. The great Qi imperial family produces beauties. Looking at Zhao Yu's face all day, what young girl wouldn't get confused? If the girl falls in love first, she'll suffer losses and it won't be good for long-term development. That's true, Zhao Yu is indeed handsome. It's just that whenever I sneak a glance at him, he glares at me and tells me to focus on my reading. The grand preceptor's eye twitched. They don't need long-term development. They only need what? My eyes widened with curiosity as I pricked up my ears to listen, but when the grand preceptor's gaze fell upon me, he hastily covered his mouth. The princess cast a cold, disdainful glance at the royal advisor. "That's your business, I couldn't care less." Inside the grand tent, 12 handsome young men stood in a row. Some were bewitchingly beautiful, others aloof and icy, while a few exuded domineering steadiness, like dazzling blossoms that threatened to overwhelm the eye. I couldn't help but think to myself, this princess really knew how to feast in style. Little Lotus beside me stared fixedly at these beautiful youths, practically drooling. Her longing was plain to see. "Actually, I'm a little tempted too." "Ah, Chen Feng, even though you've written a 1,000-word essay on the love of Lotus, your position might not be secure after all. What you can't have always stirs desire. In Zhao Yu's position, there are always girls throwing themselves at him. You need to let him enjoy the thrill of a satisfying conquest." The princess slightly raised her chin and analyzed with authority. "So the first step is not to let him win your heart too easily?" I asked in confusion. "Does it mean staying clear-headed while in love?" The princess turned her head and smiled faintly at the imperial preceptor. "It seems my romance novels have had some effect." The imperial preceptor clenched his back teeth, thinking the novels were no good. But he dared not voice his anger. The princess gestured for me to take a seat, then clapped her hands. Immediately, 12 young men displayed their unique talents. Some plucked the zither, others played the flute, filling the tent with indescribable beauty. The princess nodded in satisfaction. "After seeing so many handsome men, I'll be even more steadfast when facing Zhao Yu." These handsome men were actually prepared for me. I was dumbfounded and nearly jumped up in fright. Not reciting texts is one thing, but cuckolding Zhao Yu is entirely another matter. Will I really not end up beaten to death for causing chaos in the imperial harem? "Be good, Ning Ning." The princess suddenly called me by my childhood name in a soft voice. "I would never harm you. Don't let my good intentions go to waste." She pressed me back onto the chair, her tone as gentle as my second sister's. I found myself utterly unable to voice any refusal. What an exhilarating session of desensitization training this turned out to be, yet haunted by the guilty conscience of a child about to be caught misbehaving by their mother. I dared not openly admire these beauties. Forced to maintain composure, I watched with a straight face as these young men vied for my favor. The princess reclined on the couch eating lychees, and seeing my appearance, she nodded approvingly. I never expected Ning Ning to have such remarkable accomplishments at such a tender age. The royal priest snorted coldly and said sarcastically, "Aside from the princess, how many young ladies in this world can pass through a sea of flowers and come out covered in leaves?" The princess shot a sidelong glance at the priest and sneered, "If you keep running your mouth, I'll throw you into the 1,000-carp pond to feed the fish." I sat upright and motionless from sunset until the moon hung over the willow branches, while the tent remained brightly lit with music and dancing. The princess sipped wine served by her male attendant, her cheeks already tinged with a rosy hue. I silently recited calming mantras, fearing I might lose control and commit some capital offense, when a jewel-like youth suddenly appeared beside me holding a cup of wine. "Ning Ning." The youth's thick lashes fluttered slightly as he softly called my name. In the bright candlelight, I finally saw his face clearly, and my eyes widened slightly in shock. It was actually Xie Qiao, my childhood playmate. I was born a sickly child. While the neighborhood kids were climbing roofs and catching fish in the river, I was still taking my thrice-daily acupuncture treatments and bitter medicines. A fright would give me fever, running too fast would make me faint. I was always the wet blanket during playtime. So fewer and fewer children came to play with me until only Xie Qiao remained. He had practiced martial arts since childhood, yet was always willing to play cat's cradle and house with me. When I was 12 years old, the 15-year-old Xie Qiao, dressed in elegant white robes, took a renowned martial arts master as his teacher. He declared he would retreat to the mountains for secluded training, vowing to someday roam the world with his sword by his side. Time flies swiftly by. After completing his studies, Xie Qiao never forgot his original aspirations. Treading through darkness and bloodshed, he devoted himself to the path of righteousness, upholding justice. Yet the world proved treacherous. Encountering villains, he suffered grave injuries and lost all his martial arts skills. Old enemies, hearing the news, came rushing to take his life. His once cherished dreams of the martial world shattered. Xie Qiao found himself mired in the mire. Forced to eke out a living in the South Wind Pavilion, I imagined his life after the age of 15, feeling a bit sentimental and sad. What's with that look on your face? Perhaps my expression was too sorrowful. As Xie Qiao looked at me with displeasure, don't overthink it, I've been doing just fine. Oops. My bad. Guess I've been reading too many melodramatic stories. Taking the opportunity to toast, Xie Qiao told me that he had now become one of the top masters in the sect. And his entry into the Southern Breeze Pavilion was entirely a twist of fate. Moreover, he brought me good news. I would be able to see my elder brother the next day. Mother came from a merchant family, and my maternal grandfather and uncles had thriving businesses in Yunju. The hunting grounds for this autumn hunt were close to Yunju, and local officials had purchased silk and treasures from my uncles to present to the emperor. My elder brother is also among the accompanying party and asked to meet me tomorrow at Windward Slope. With these words, Xie Qiao stepped back a few paces and began performing swordplay, executing 18 different techniques in mere moments. I secretly gave him a thumbs up. He nodded at me with an air of pride. Sword shadows weaved together, casting a dazzling curtain of light. How has the family been this past year or so? Has Brother Chen confessed his feelings to second sister yet? Has eldest sister's rouge shop opened for business? Autumn has arrived. Mother must have made plenty of sugar-roasted chestnuts again. My heart's yearning intertwined with the figure before me, until gradually the world seemed to spin and my body grew feverish, the music and dance receding into the distance. Little Lotus was the first to notice my condition. She gasped, "What's wrong with you, my lady?" Some people gathered around me, each as hazy as shadows. The Grand Princess and the State Preceptor seemed to be circling me. The Grand Princess roared, "Yinzihang, you scoundrel, how dare you drug this girl when she's already unwell? No matter how desperate you are, this is unacceptable." The princess kicked the Imperial Preceptor to the ground, seething. "Zhao Yu will skin you alive for this." The Imperial Preceptor grimaced in pain from the fall. "Heaven and earth bear witness, it wasn't me. I thought your highness was the one who administered the drug." The princess turned and shouted, "Guards, summon his majesty at once." I was helped onto the couch. Someone poured some water into my mouth and kept fanning me with a fan. After who knows how long, Zhao Yu's voice sounded indistinctly by my ear as he asked, "What happened?" With great effort, I pried open my eyelids and stared blankly at him. The hazy moonlight set off his jade-like complexion, making him look dignified and handsome. I remembered the steady beat of his heart when I leaned against his chest, remembered the pleasant scent of aged sandalwood that clung to him. I struggled to get up and walk toward him. I bent down and wrapped my arms around his waist. I whimpered, on the verge of tears from sheer misery, and said to him, "Zhao Yu, I feel awful." Zhao Yu picked me up and turned to walk toward the tent entrance. With a somber expression, he ordered, "Summon the imperial physician." The Grand Princess was incredulous. "Summon what physician? Are you perhaps incapable?" Zhao Yu turned his head, casting a sharp glance. "Ningning's constitution is too weak. I fear complications may arise." Dazed, I gazed at him. "I think complications have already arisen." His clear, translucent eyes, the graceful curve of his jawline, and the undulating lines of his Adam's apple, each detail made my heart tremble. My mind was utterly lost in a haze. "Mother, I'm about to do something wicked." Rip. The sound of fabric tearing was exceptionally loud. The palace maids, after their initial shock, all lowered their heads in unison, unable to bear the sight. The Grand Princess led the crowd away in haste. I swore to myself silently never to drink again. Just a few cups of wine had not only left me completely drunk and unconscious, but I also slept until dusk the next day, nearly missing the chance to see my brother. Dusk enveloped the land, and the wind carried the rich fragrance of grass and trees. Xiaolian and I fumbled our way to the outer camp. As we reached a deserted spot, the faint sobbing of a woman emerged from the grass. "All is lost. This is a crime punishable by death. Erlang, what should I do? What should I do?" The man's panicked voice rang out. "There's no way out now, Wenna. You must attend the royal bedchamber as soon as possible. If the pregnancy shows any more, we won't be able to hide it. We'll all be killed." "But His Majesty has never touched me." "Good grief. Where are my melon seeds, tea, and little stool?" Xiao Lian's lips moved soundlessly, mouthing to me, The emperor's been cuckolded. I nodded in deep agreement with her, and we tiptoed around, trying to avoid this trouble spot. We hadn't gone far when an angry shout came from behind. Stop! Turning around, I, dressed in a palace maid's attire, and Reuben, also clad in a maid's outfit, stared at each other in shock. Trembling all over, she murmured. Consort Jiang. The burly guard stared at us, his eyes brimming with murderous intent. You all heard it. We didn't hear anything at all, Xiaolian and I kept denying. But the guard didn't believe us, drawing his sword as he advanced toward us. I thought to myself, this is bad, like a desperate patient turning to any doctor. I'm also here to meet my secret lover. Trust me, Concubine Ru, just a few steps ahead and you'll see him. I won't betray you and Erlang Shun. I had full confidence in my brother's combat skills. Concubine Ru clearly didn't believe me. Her gaze fell on the nearby river, her voice icy, meeting a secret lover and accidentally drowning. The guard gave a sinister chuckle, closing in step by step. Xiao Lian and I both let out simultaneous screams of "ah." Then the guard was knocked unconscious by a flying pebble. A dark figure darted out, cupping his hands in salute. This subordinate, Jueying, is under orders to protect her ladyship's safety. Hearing this, Consort Ru couldn't catch her breath and fainted as well. I wanted to faint too. I went through great pains to send Hua Ping and Hua Shan away. Xiaolian exhausted herself bribing the guards. And I even dressed like this. All this sneaking around was utterly pointless. I asked Jueying helplessly yet gratefully, why didn't you show yourself earlier? Had I known you were here, I wouldn't have gone through all this trouble. He bowed again and said, this subordinate was ordered to protect your highness's safety. Everything else is beyond my concern. Jueying hesitated for a moment before finally unable to resist advising, Your Highness, please return to camp with this subordinate. You must not stray onto the wrong path. Black mask, black robes. He was dressed in a murderous fashion, yet his voice carried a youthful timbre, likely still a teenager, since I was already in too deep to back out. I told Jueying I was going to meet my brother, my own flesh and blood, but Jueying was convinced I was lying to him and insisted I return to camp. Stubborn as a mule, I swore to defend His Majesty's dignity to the death. At a stalemate, I clutched my chest and shot Xiaolian a meaningful glance. She immediately understood, supporting me as she said to Jueying, Her Highness is having another attack. Quick, Brother Shadowguard, fetch the medicine. Hold on, Your Highness. This subordinate will summon help at once. Jueying's face showed doubt, but he ultimately didn't dare to gamble, vanishing in a flash. After Jueying left, I ran until I was panting heavily, finally spotting my brother beneath the 7th large tree on the windward slope. Brother, I flew toward him like a little bird. He wiped the thin sweat from my forehead with his handkerchief, saying I was still as careless as ever. Then my brother laughed, but as he laughed his eyes grew red. Ningning has grown up. I always knew no one in this world could dislike my little sister. My eyes reddened too. I thought my brother was lying. He'd cried when I entered the palace, clearly believing I was going to my death. The setting sun slowly descended from the mountain peak, while the moon rose distantly in the sky. My elder brother said everyone was doing well, father and mother were fine, and so were my sisters. In my early days at the palace, mother often shed tears, but later, when gifts from the palace arrived and she learned I was doing well, her heart gradually eased. The Pei family, displeased that I enjoyed the emperor's favor yet refused to serve the noble consort, sought to forcibly take my second sister as a concubine for Pei Sanlang. Fortunately, it was a false alarm. Zhao Yu intervened in the matter. Father was also transferred from the Ministry of Revenue, and Duke of Qin, following imperial orders, had been taking extra care of our household. I looked up at the stars in the sky. Zhao Yu was truly a good man. He didn't have to do any of this. Brother had to leave, and I bid him farewell. On the way back, it started to rain. Xiao Lian and I splashed through puddles, getting drenched like drowned rats. As we reached Fufeng Valley, the clamor of voices filled the air, with scattered fires and crowds of people and horses creating a scene of utter chaos. I quickly grabbed a young eunuch to ask what was happening. His face ashen, he stammered incoherently, Assassins have infiltrated the hunting grounds. His Majesty was attacked during the palace banquet. My mind went blank with panic, and I desperately sprinted toward the inner camp. What's wrong with His Majesty? Is he injured? Running too fast made me dizzy. The banquet venue was completely surrounded, and the guards remained tight-lipped. Unwilling to pay attention to a disheveled little maid who was panting and covered in dust, I stared blankly at the corpses of black-clad men strewn haphazardly on the ground, my mind flooded with all sorts of terrible thoughts. This situation, is Zhao Yu seriously injured? I keep dragging him down, and I haven't even apologized to him yet. I haven't thanked him either." In a daze, I heard a familiar voice, "Jiang Ning." Turning around, I saw Zhao Yu standing not far away. His face livid with anger as he glared at me and coldly demanded, "Had enough fun?" He strode toward me swiftly. "The guard said you had a heart attack, but when I returned, you were gone. Tonight there was another assassination attempt. Do you have any idea how close I came to turning the entire outer camp upside down searching for you?" I ran toward him and threw myself into his arms, sobbing uncontrollably. After a long while, he sighed and patted my back comfortingly, saying, "What troubles you? Your crying has given me a headache." Catching a faint whiff of blood on him, I loosened my grip and asked tearfully, "Where are you hurt?" Before Zhao Yu could answer, a sharp female voice suddenly rang out, "Your Majesty, Consort Jiang has flouted palace rules and acted suspiciously. She is likely involved in tonight's assassination attempt." Consort Jin stepped forward and knelt to offer her counsel. Consorts of the rear palace, imperial relatives and high-ranking ministers. Only then did I notice the massive crowd standing behind Zhao Yu. He said indifferently, "Baseless rumors." Consort Jin spoke with earnest sincerity. "Are they truly baseless rumors, or is your Majesty deliberately shielding her?" Consort Jiang has been lingering in the imperial study for days, treating ancestral laws with utter disregard. Today she absented herself from the palace banquet without reason and appeared dressed in such a manner. It seems noble Consort Jin and Zhao Yu were truly not close. When had Zhao Yu ever cared about ancestral rules and family laws? He said in a low voice, "Noble Consort Jin has shown contempt for palace regulations and misconduct in speech and behavior. She is to be confined to the cold palace." Noble Consort Jin swayed slightly, her voice trembling as she asked, "What wrong has this concubine committed? How many animal corpses are buried in Qingyun Palace? The maids in your palace always bear unhealed bruises. You know full well what you've done." Zhao Yu's tone was calm, but his impatience was unmistakable. Had it not been for the presence of so many people, he would certainly have spared himself the trouble of speaking at such length. Disregarding palace regulations may be trivial, but what if one uses witchcraft to bewitch His Majesty's heart? Noble Consort Li knelt properly and spoke deliberately for half an hour. The gist was that my favor with the Emperor was so inexplicable, it must have been achieved through some form of seductive sorcery. This story has a clear beginning and end with a complete plot. By the time she finished speaking, I felt like a criminal suspect myself. Zhao Yu stood quietly in place, a hint of frost gathering in his eyes. "She doesn't have that capability." The imperial consort raised her eyebrows sharply. "Indeed she doesn't, because the one who helped her cast the curse was State Preceptor Yin Zihang." The State Preceptor stepped forward, loudly proclaiming his innocence. The Grand Princess stepped forward and rebuked, "What evidence do you have?" The noble consort indeed had evidence. Presented before Zhao Yu was a thick stack of rice paper, filled to the brim with personal information about both me and Zhao Yu. The scribbled, ghostly handwriting was unmistakably the Grand Preceptor's signature style. Moreover, several palace maids and eunuchs had testified that the Grand Preceptor had repeatedly sneaked into my palace after my entry into the imperial harem. The scene fell into complete silence. Could all the unusual occurrences I've encountered since entering the palace truly be because of the State Preceptor? Yet I barely know him. Digging my nails deep into my palms, I struggled to maintain my composure. The chilly autumn wind made me dizzy and muddle-headed. If Zhao Yu and I were to faint here together, not even jumping into the Yellow River could wash us clean. Zhao Yu's gaze fell upon me as he said coldly, "This matter is for us to decide." The imperial consort immediately welled up with tears. "My brother is still fighting bitterly on the front lines. Would your Majesty truly be so unjust as to chill the hearts of your soldiers? It seems the imperial consort's political acumen is rather mediocre after all." These words might achieve their immediate purpose, but they also planted a thorn in the Emperor's heart. Seeing this, several ministers stepped forward and knelt, pleading for His Majesty to thoroughly investigate the matter. In that case, Zhao Yu turned to the State Preceptor. "We have no choice but to detain you temporarily for investigation." He paused briefly before continuing, "As for Consort Jiang, given her pregnancy, the imperial heir takes precedence. She shall be confined to her quarters for now." Was this inspiration given to him by Consort Ru? Behind me, Xiao Lian gasped sharply. As the State Preceptor was dragged away, I heard him mutter under his breath, "You're so great, so noble, you saved the female lead but sent me to rot in prison." I didn't know how much of the noble consort's words Zhao Yu actually believed. After that day, I was confined to the tent and hadn't seen him for nearly half a month. The night before returning to the palace, I drifted off to sleep in a daze, only to wake at midnight in a warm embrace. Zhao Yu's dark, fathomless eyes gazed intently at me, his faintly cold fragrance drifting into my senses. Tonight, he seemed especially weary. Instinctively, I explained to him, "It wasn't me, I know." He gave a pale smile. The assassin was from the Fine Willow Battalion. Zhao Yu seemed somewhat dazed as he slowly told me the story of his mother, Empress Kui. Empress Kui was the granddaughter of the Marquis of Dingyuan, a woman as beautiful as a flower goddess yet extraordinarily talented. At the age of 15, Empress Kui was riding a horse in the countryside when her pony accidentally stepped on a beast trap. Drenched by the rain and with an injured leg, she cried out to heaven and earth, but no one came to her aid. It was then that the late Emperor Zhao Qi appeared. He carried her on his own horse and took her home. At that time, Zhao Qi was merely an obscure prince, but with the support of the Marquis of Dingyuan, he ascended the throne and became the ruler of the nation. The beast trap was set by Zhao Qi's men in the first place. He used her but never loved her. After securing his throne, Zhao Qi used the witchcraft incident to purge the Kui family. He was never a good husband or a kind father. The women in his harem bloomed like clusters of flowers, one after another. He fabricated a clumsy illusion, yet Mother Queen believed him. Mother Queen refused to wake from that dream until her dying breath. The willow barracks were her last talisman, yet she gave the tiger tally to Zhao Qi. Later, the tiger tally fell into the hands of the third prince, the Prince of Wu. This elite army, originally founded by the Marquis of Dingyuan, ultimately became the Prince of Wu's sharp blade against Zhao Yu. When I raised my rebellion in Yingzhou, Mother Queen wrote in her final letter that she wished she had never given birth to me. His voice trembled slightly. That's when I realized she didn't love me or my sister, nor even the Kui family, but was madly in love with Zhao Qi. For some reason, my heart ached for him, so I nestled into his embrace, mustering my courage for a long while. With my heart pounding, I confessed earnestly, "Don't be sad, you're so wonderful, I'll love you." Only the steady sound of breathing answered me. In the end, my trust was misplaced. Could I wake him up and make him listen to me again? On our way back to the palace, we were ambushed. While the guards and the black-clad men were locked in fierce combat, suddenly rocks began to crumble, and the earth shook violently. Misfortunes never come singly. The carriage bolted forward like mad, and Zhao Yu reached out to me through the window, pulling me onto a horse. "It's an earthquake. The canyon is about to collapse. We must leave here as soon as possible." He pressed a small jade vial into my hand, urging me to take the medicine, then half embraced me while whispering comfort. "Be good. Close your eyes and don't look at anything." The horse galloped swiftly, the clashing of swords blending with countless terrified screams. After what felt like an eternity, silence gradually descended once more. In the dense forest, Zhao Yu helped me dismount from the horse. When I turned to look at him, I realized his face was deathly pale, covered in blood. He shielded me in his embrace, yet he himself had been struck by multiple arrows. Frantic, I pressed my hands against his wounds as tears instantly welled up in my eyes. "Why are you so good to me? Could it be that he's truly fallen for me?" He sighed softly. "Hurt this delicate little thing, and now I have to serve you myself." Before he could finish speaking, his body collapsed straight forward, blood soaked through his clothes as I knelt beside him, trembling while tearing fabric to bandage his wounds. "Jiang Ning." Zhao Yu's throat moved slightly as he slowly opened his eyes. "After freeloading by my side for so long, you ought to do something for me." I choked back a sob. "Tell me." "I'm listening." From the capital's defenses to border strategies, from court politics to how to deploy the imperial guards. Zhao Yu spoke intermittently for half a quarter hour. He wanted me and the Grand Princess to stabilize the ministers of the former court, and the non-existent child in my womb was to be our greatest bargaining chip. He instructed us to support the young heir's ascension to the throne. That sounds like last words no matter how you hear it. "Did you remember everything?" He rarely praised me, but this time he said, "I noticed back in the imperial study that you memorize things very quickly." I kept shaking my head. "I didn't remember anything. You'll have to handle these matters yourself. Then let the shadow guard take you away, so you won't be bullied. That shadow guard doesn't look very bright. I'd rather keep clinging to your mighty tree." He had already fallen unconscious, leaving me with only silence in response. That day, it was Zhao Yu's men who found us first, but Zhao Yu was severely injured and remained unconscious even 5 days later, following his instructions. I obtained the token that represented his authority, met with the Grand Princess and many of his trusted aides, and methodically carried out his original plans. In the hall, candlelight flickered softly, while the shattered dragon phoenix pendant and a large pouch lay quietly on the table. I picked up the pouch to examine it and couldn't help but laugh. Orange sachets, insect repellent, various pills. Was he some kind of treasure chest? Which emperor normally carries so many things on his person? Laughter turned to tears that I couldn't hold back. I felt I'd wronged him. Those trivial moments in the imperial study, I'd clearly been moved too, yet deliberately suppressed the affection spreading through my heart, complacently accepting his care. Now he's seriously injured while protecting me. Even the royal physician said his chances of survival are slim. I stayed by his bedside, crying alone for a long time, until news came from the prison that the Grand Preceptor wanted to see me. Yes, I should go see him. Although I've never fully understood his cryptic way of speaking, he accurately predicted so many major events. He knew about the connection between me and Zhao Yu. Such a peerless master must surely have a way to save Zhao Yu. I went straight to the Ministry of Justice prison and bluntly asked him when Zhao Yu would wake up, but he said, "Your Highness, there must be a deadly calamity." My eyes instantly reddened as I pleaded with him. "Can't you think of some way? His Majesty will awaken at the hour of yin." The imperial astrologer's voice cut sharply through the prison's silence. "The fatal calamity belongs to Your Highness the Empress." The moon-shrouding night stretched endlessly, its darkness seemingly without end. On the desk, lamp wicks formed and fell with soft, crackling sounds. I leaned over Zhao Yu's bedside, chattering away to him. "Having me study in the imperial study, were you just teasing me? I don't believe for a second that making me learn all that nonsense would make you fall for me. You always said I was foolish, but clearly you're the biggest fool in the world. It's not like I'll live long anyway. Wouldn't it be better for you to leave me behind and save yourself? What kind of people did you send to investigate me? How could they even find out about the rabbits I kept as a child or when I got lost? Don't I get to keep any dignity? If you don't wake up, where am I supposed to get a child to hand over? It would be such a shame to give your vast empire to someone else." I rambled on incoherently, my fingers lightly brushing his cold cheek. "I didn't mean to not come find you. It's just that your code of conduct was too long. I couldn't memorize any of it. I was afraid you'd scold me. So instead you held storytelling sessions in the palace, played leaf cards, and went with the princess to look at handsome men." The man on the bed half opened his eyes to look at me, his pale lips curling slightly as he spoke in a very, very soft voice. No, I didn't even dare look directly at them. "And none of them were as good looking as you." My words dissolved into sobs. "Thank goodness. You came back to life. Wow, you came back to life." He reached out to touch my hair, sounding somewhat exasperated. "Did I ever actually die?" "Pretty much." I burst into laughter through my tears, burying my face in his palm. The layered clouds scattered by the wind revealed the cold moon hanging high outside the window. It was indeed the hour of yin as the state preceptor had predicted. Without the slightest discrepancy. People can be truly strange sometimes. Zhao Yu had so many concubines that I never really cared whether he liked me or not, but when he was nearing death, I realized I couldn't actually live without him. Now that I'm about to die, I've come to love being by his side again. When his wounds were still healing, I changed his dressings for him every single day. While he reviewed memorials, I would grind ink by his side. When he returned from court, I waited for him outside the Hall of Supreme Harmony. I even learned to cook from the imperial kitchen chefs, trying every way to prepare delicious dishes for him. Though Zhao Yu said that after all these years of dining, my handmade meals remained the most unpalatable, the words of the imperial advisor still echo in my ears at times, but I quickly came to understand, I've actually lived a very happy life. Though I was often sick as a child, I was loved by my parents and older siblings. Though I suffered a bit when I first entered the palace, I never had to endure hardship again after that. Somehow, I became involved with Zhao Yu. But he was so handsome and genuinely good to me, it turned out to be a proper romance after all. Fate has already favored me in many ways. One similar day rolled into another, and by the time Zhao Yu had completely dismantled the Shiliu camp and the kingdom of Yuliang had surrendered to Great Qi, another new year had arrived. On the new year of the Great Qi dynasty, the emperor hosted a banquet to celebrate with all the officials, while Prince Mingchuan of the Jade Liang Kingdom visited as an envoy. On this day of nationwide celebration, instead of watching tedious dances at the palace banquet, I sought Zhao Yu's permission to return home for a reunion dinner. I truly missed my parents, brothers, and sisters. As the sun set in the west, I changed out of my palace attire into a peach-pink Ruchuan dress, lightly applied rouge, and delicately painted my brows, dressing myself in a jubilant manner. Then, I hurriedly took Xiao Lian to the eastern gate to board the carriage. Just as we were about to arrive, I saw the Grand Preceptor waving at me from afar. Zhao Yu had already cleared both our names of the charges. As for my pregnancy, it was simply said that the child hadn't survived the day of the assassination attempt, to console me for the loss. They even went so far as to confer upon me the title of virtuous consort. This title didn't suit me in the slightest. I suspected Zhao Yu was mocking me. After all, on the day he issued the decree, I took advantage of his unpreparedness to stuff a piece of my homemade peach shortbread into his mouth and even covered it to prevent him from spitting it out. The Imperial Preceptor scurried to my side, frowning as he said, "Chen Wanning has gone to see His Majesty." "Who is Chen Wanning?" The Imperial Preceptor's expression suddenly darkened, looking as if he was thinking, "How could you not know this? His Majesty's White Moonlight who went to Yuliang for a political marriage 5 years ago." I suddenly remembered, I think I've heard about this gossip before. I nodded at the Imperial Preceptor to indicate my understanding and continued walking forward, but he reached out to stop me. "How can you be so lacking in sense of crisis? You should be rushing to the Hall of Eternal Life right now to tear out Chen Wanning's hair." I was utterly confused. Why is the Imperial Preceptor always so concerned about matters between His Majesty and me? "Thank you for your kindness, but I'm heading home now. I don't want to get into any hair-pulling fights." The carriage was right before my eyes. I dashed toward the eastern side gate while the State Preceptor spun in circles on the spot, his face full of frustration. Roasted lamb from Guangzhou Zhai, 8 treasure duck from Tanxiang Lu, the delicate post-rain tea from Funka Lai. Knowing I'd been cooped up for too long, my elder siblings took me out to feast on all these delicious treats, for the first time in my life. I even visited a gambling den. Though I lost quite a bit of money, the monthly stipend for a consort was substantial, and since I'd been staying by Zhao Yu's side all along, I'd had nowhere to spend it. Every night I slept nestled close to Mother, and Father made me exquisite rabbit lanterns just like when I was little. Xie Qiao moved back into the Xie residence. Every evening he'd sit atop the wall and regale us with tales of his adventures in the martial world. Little Lotus had become quite enamored with him. My days at home were filled with joy. Just the thought of them crying when I die makes me feel terribly sad again. During this time, Zhao Yu had already sent 3 groups of people to fetch me, but I turned them all away. I've already spent so much time with him. And now I want to stay longer with my parents. I have no desire at all to return to the palace. On the eve of the Lantern Festival, my eldest sister finally opened the rouge shop she'd been preparing for so long, while I sat nearby rapidly clicking abacus beads to keep the accounts. The feeling of making money work for you is truly wonderful. If I were immortal, I'd love to open a restaurant or something. Then the capital would gain another beautiful and mysterious wealthy woman. As I was counting money and daydreaming, someone tapped on the counter. "Your Highness, may I have a word?" Looking up, I saw the Imperial Preceptor standing beside the counter. "By the moat," the Imperial Astrologer said to me with grave concern, "the bond between Your Majesty and the Empress must be severed as soon as possible." I asked in confusion, "Why does the astrologer say this?" I had always thought the connection would break automatically upon my death. I've been slacking off for quite some time now. Where starlight points, their fate reveals itself. The Imperial Preceptor placed a faintly glowing crystal sphere in my palm. As I gazed at the small orb, I saw within it a vast starry sky, with 2 particularly bright stars entwined in an eternal dance. The bond between Your Majesty and Her Highness is like these 2 stars, unchanging through eternity, transcending life and death. Without the intervention of supreme love, this unique connection between you can never be severed. I expressed my doubts. "You mean to say that even if I become a ghost, he could still share my pain? That doesn't seem plausible. His Majesty might die with you." The Grand Preceptor's conviction seems strong, but today he seems a bit ridiculous to me. "Is that so?" I said with feigned distress. "This is truly heartbreaking. The matter is of great importance. I must hurry to inform His Majesty so we can work together on this." The solemn-faced Grand Preceptor instantly panicked. "No, no, Your Majesty mustn't do that." I pretended to be puzzled. "And why is that?" The Imperial Preceptor pondered for a long time before finally saying, "The character for love comes from heart. If His Majesty were to learn all this and force himself to love Her Majesty out of a desire to survive, it would mean losing his true heart." The Imperial Preceptor seemed quite pleased with his own words and looked at me expectantly. I nodded solemnly. "That makes sense. So what should I do?" The Imperial Preceptor let out a sigh of relief. "By my calculations, Your Majesty will take Chen Wanning to admire the lanterns by Mirror Moon Lake at the hour of high tomorrow. She is currently your greatest rival. If she succeeds, your chances are finished, so Your Highness must absolutely ruin this rendezvous, for example." The court astrologer hesitated briefly. Pushing her into the water would work quite well, on such a bitterly cold day, that seemed rather too cruel. Could you come with me? I fretted. I have no sense of direction, and Mirror Moon Lake is so vast, finding them won't be easy. Minor issue. The Imperial Preceptor said with a pleased expression. This subject will surely bring Her Highness there. Then tomorrow at Yu hour, 5 to 7 p.m., at Long Yu Tower, no leaving without meeting. Let's go scout the place in advance. Your Highness, I don't believe the Imperial Preceptor's prophecy is credible. You haven't had an episode in so long, you're definitely going to live much longer. As the lanterns were lit, Xiao Lian and I walked home, discussing the Imperial Preceptor's words. We all agreed that the State Preceptor's rhetoric and reactions today were just like those of a street charlatan, though that crystal orb in his hand did seem like a genuine treasure. A glimmer of hope flickered in my heart. Perhaps it was because too many physicians and fortune-tellers had predicted my early demise since childhood, so when the State Preceptor declared I would die this autumn, I didn't question it much. After all, he was the State Preceptor, his prophecies had never been wrong before. But I overlooked another possibility. The Grand Preceptor was deceiving me. The Imperial Preceptor has always been peculiar in both attire and behavior. I'm certain he harbors secrets, but what could his motives be? We share no blood or bond, yet he seems particularly eager to pair me with Zhao Yu, always acting as if he's wearing himself out over our affairs. The swing in the courtyard swayed gently with the breeze. By the time we returned home, Xie Qiao was already perched atop the wall. He landed before us like a gust of wind, holding a bag in his hand. Chang Xiyuan's layered rice cakes, want some? Xiao Lian stared eagerly. Yes. I took the bag and handed it to Xiao Lian, then had a sudden idea and said to Xie Qiao, didn't you say the other day that you could drink 1,000 cups without getting drunk and outlast all your martial friends? Xie Qiao looked at me with delight. What, are you treating me to a drink? Great, I cheered. I need your help with something. By Mirror Moon Lake during the Lantern Festival, the view was filled with brilliant lights. A magnificent scene of prosperous times. The State Preceptor, dressed entirely in black with a dark bamboo hat, blended into the night. We circled around several times before finally spotting him. Xiao Lian exclaimed in surprise, why is the State Preceptor dressed like this? This outfit carries quite a murderous aura. I nodded in agreement with Xiao Lian's opinion. The State Preceptor said indignantly, His Majesty may not do anything to you, but if he finds out I took you to catch an adulterer, I'll be thrown back in jail again. Catch an adulterer. Zhao Yu is the emperor, what kind of adultery would I be catching him in? Still, if he really had a white moonlight, I suppose I would feel sad about it. The Grand Tutor anxiously instructed, once we find the person, I'm slipping away, whatever you do, don't rat me out. Got it, got it. No sooner had the words been spoken than Xie Qiao, dressed in elegant white robes, sauntered up to me and exclaimed in surprise, Jiang Ning, what a coincidence. I threw myself into acting with great enthusiasm, feigning astonishment. Ah, I exclaimed, Xie Qiao, what are you doing here? Xie Qiao enthusiastically invited us. The Hune cuisine at Long Yu Tower is absolutely superb. I've reserved a table but was worried about not having company. Running into you all is truly wonderful. Perfect timing, we haven't had dinner yet. Thank you so much. The Imperial Preceptor whispered to me. Your Majesty, don't forget our main purpose. I waved it off casually. There's still over an hour before the hour of high. Besides, the view from upstairs is excellent, it'll make finding people later much easier. In the elegant pavilion atop the Long Yu Tower, waiters filed in one after another, covering the table with fine dishes and exquisite wines. Xie Qiao had been lavishing praise on the State Preceptor, chatting with him about his past prophecies. But the State Preceptor showed little interest, refusing even a single cup of the wine Xie Qiao offered. They say that truth comes out when one is drunk. I had originally planned to coax some information from the State Preceptor before making my next move, but now, could it be that I really have to follow him to catch an adulterer? If Zhao Yu really did take Chen Wanning to see the lanterns, then my sudden appearance would be so awkward. I don't want to bring trouble upon myself, but if I don't go, the Imperial Preceptor might explode on the spot. His mood today seems particularly unstable. Just as I was fretting over this, the proprietress of Long Yu Tower suddenly called us downstairs to watch the dance. Each of us had our own ulterior motives, so naturally, none of us wanted to go, yet the proprietress refused to let us off the hook. Somehow, among the four of us, not a single one could muster the words to refuse. On the Lantern Festival, the Long Yu Tower bustled with people from all walks of life, welcoming guests and seeing them off. On the stage, several dancing girls swayed to the music played by the musicians. the leading girl, veiled, sang with a melodious voice. Xie Qiao, noticing my absent-mindedness, whispered to me, "I brought the finest cholu by today, it's strong liquor, 3 cups enough to knock out a hero. Should I just pour it down his throat? Not advisable, not advisable." Forcing alcohol upon him would likely put the state preceptor on guard, making it probable that nothing could be asked of him. The song finally came to an end, and as we all rose in unison to head upstairs, the singing girl suddenly proclaimed loudly, "Today's songs by Ping Ping are all dedicated to the state preceptor. He is Ping Ping's benefactor, and the savior of the entire Dewdrop village." Tears glistened in the girl's beautiful eyes as she expressed the devout gratitude of the whole Dewdrop village to the state preceptor. It turned out that the state preceptor's prophecy last March had saved every single person in Dewdrop village from casualties during the flood. Someone started the chant, and soon the whole crowd was rhythmically shouting Yin Zihang, the atmosphere boiling with excitement as we joyfully clapped for him. In such a touching scene, the state preceptor fled in panic. Inside the pavilion, the state preceptor sat slumped at the table, looking as if he was about to cry. "State preceptor, I'm Xu Pingping. Do you still remember me?" We were at a loss when the girl walked in, holding red plum blossoms and carrying a wine cup. The state preceptor lowered his head and whispered, "I still remember. I never found the chance to thank you before. I didn't expect to meet you here today. Pingping offers you this cup in respect." Xu Pingping handed the red plum blossoms to the state preceptor, while Xie Qiao hurriedly poured wine for him. The imperial preceptor took the wine cup and drank, his face filled with remorse. "You needn't thank me. When you were about to move to Liu Mountain, I should have stopped you." "Don't say that, imperial preceptor. This isn't your fault." In the girl's soft and gentle tone, I pieced together the full picture of what had happened. After the people of Dewdrop village heeded the imperial preceptor's advice, they relocated to Wutong town at the foot of Liu Mountain to avoid the flood. Unexpectedly, a plague broke out there, resulting in the deaths of many villagers, while others were left with lifelong disabilities. From the Grand Preceptor's insinuations, it seemed he had anticipated the plague, but the villagers, having finally settled down, were naturally reluctant to move again, for some reason. The Grand Preceptor didn't insist. After Xu Pingping left, the Grand Preceptor picked up the wine pot and drained it in one gulp, leaving the rest of us utterly stunned. He sat quietly for a while before finally breaking down in uncontrollable sobs of grief. From the Grand Preceptor's drunken ramblings, we pieced together the truth. It turns out we were living in the world of a storybook. I was the female lead, an obscure concubine who came to know and love the emperor. Becoming his favorite in the harem, at first, the emperor only saw me as a substitute for Chen Wanning, but when he had me imitate her in the imperial study, he truly fell for me. After Chen Wanning returned, the emperor grew cold and harsh toward me out of guilt toward her. Since childhood, my frail constitution meant that only after narrowly escaping death would I receive the emperor's complete love, but by then, my lamp would have burned to its last drop of oil. As for the imperial preceptor, he was a man from another world, sent to this one with the mission of repairing the storyline. To fulfill his task, he seemed to have done many things against his conscience, including not persuading the villagers of Lushui village to leave, secretly inciting other concubines to target me, and tonight, sending me to find Zhao Yu. He knew full well that Chen Wanning would falsely accuse me of pushing her into the water tonight, causing me to miscarry, yet he deliberately guided me into doing it anyway. That's why he appeared so uneasy, and Xu Pingping's appearance only made him feel even more remorseful. He told me about my impending death to motivate me, to make me actively pursue Zhao Yu, because people tend to be exceptionally bold when facing death. Unfortunately, before I could ask about the connection between me and Zhao Yu, he was already dead drunk. The night was ablaze with dazzling lights, and the lake was dotted with painted boats, floating leisurely. Xiaolian stood by the window with me, lost in thought. When Xie Qiao came to my side, "Ningning, what do you plan to do next?" I sighed. "If everything is as the state preceptor said, this is practically an open book exam for me now. I'll try to figure out how to avoid those calamities." My hand unconsciously touched my abdomen. I still needed to confirm whether I was truly carrying a child. "Your Highness, look." Xiao Lian suddenly tugged at my sleeve. "Doesn't that person look like His Majesty?" I focused my gaze and saw a girl running out from a painted pleasure boat not far away, embracing a man in dark casual robes from behind. I stared blankly at the scene as the man turned around. His movements froze when our eyes met. It was indeed Zhao Yu. The next second, my expression looked as if I'd seen a ghost. I slammed the window shut, hitting Xie Qiao's nose. he gasped sharply in pain. Sorry. Are you okay? Xie Qiao shook his head. I told him, take the Imperial Preceptor and go first. If he comes looking, I have a way to handle it. After Xie Qiao carried the Imperial Preceptor away, I hurriedly pulled Xiao Lian to leave, but the waiter stopped us. Miss, you haven't settled the bill yet. I was puzzled. Didn't we pay in full when we ordered? The waiter checked the bill. The meal was paid for, but you later ordered several jugs of century-old fine wine, totaling 170 taels. Who carries that much silver when going out? It would be really heavy. I never expected this turn of events. I'm helpless and anxious. I said, can I send someone to bring it to you after I get home? My family lives at the Jiang residence. No, 157 Wujue Alley, Changping Street. Or you could come with me to fetch it. That won't do. If you know any martial arts and run off halfway, or if you refuse to pay, I'd be in big trouble. Where's your boss? She knows the Imperial Preceptor. We came with him. There's no way we'd skip out on the bill. The shop assistant scratched his head. The boss went to deliver wine to Lord Zhong's residence in the west of the city. She probably won't be back for a while. It seems I'll have to send Juing to fetch it. But last time at the hunting grounds he left without permission and got called an idiot by Zhao Yu. I wonder if he'll agree to leave me here again this time. Jiang Ning. I was just pondering where Juing might be hiding when I heard Zhao Yu call my name. Turning around, I saw him standing at the doorway, his expression frighteningly cold, with a pained expression. I walked up to him and forced a smile that looked worse than crying. Your Majesty, could you help me settle the bill? In the loft of the painted pleasure boat, Zhao Yu remained silent with a dark expression. I stood before him as punishment, while Juing knelt nearby, also being disciplined. Though Juing hadn't done anything wrong, Zhao Yu had probably forgotten to let him rise. Ever since learning that Xie Qiao sat on the wall every day telling stories and often sent over food, Zhao Yu had turned into a statue. After what felt like half an hour, I could no longer stand it and mustered the courage to call out, Your Majesty. When he showed no reaction, I resorted to pinching my own arm hard. Even that didn't make him acknowledge me. Just as I cautiously prepared to kneel down, exhausted from standing, Zhao Yu finally looked up at me. Drinking and moon-gazing together in the dead of night, is this why you didn't want to return to the palace? No, I immediately denied. The reason I don't want to return to the palace is because I want to spend more time with my parents. Zhao Yu finally couldn't hold back anymore. He abruptly stood up, grabbed my wrist, and coldly demanded. Spending time with your parents involves going out with another man during the Lantern Festival. Spending time with your parents means chatting with another man every single day. He enunciated each word deliberately. Jiang Ning, don't even think about leaving the palace ever again. The scent of another woman still clung to him, making me sick to my stomach. Having stood there foolishly for so long, hearing these words caused my anger to explode instantly. I shook off his hand. And what about you? Didn't you bring other women to enjoy the Lantern Festival too? You have so many concubines, yet I haven't done anything. Why are you so furious with me? I shouted even louder than him, and Juing beside me seemed to think I'd lost my mind. And another thing, why did you make me study so many things in the Imperial study? What was the point? Tears fell uncontrollably, instantly diminishing my imposing demeanor. I quickly wiped them away. At least I didn't use someone as a substitute like you did. Zhao Yu froze for a moment. What? He was just my childhood playmate. Because I often fainted, other children refused to play with me and even called me a short-lived ghost. He was my only friend. Why can't I even listen to the stories he tells? You're being unreasonable. The more I spoke, the more aggrieved I felt. With tears streaming down my face, I accused him of all his wrongdoings. Even bringing up how he mocked my ugly pear pastries. Zhao Yu froze for a moment, his eyes flickering with worry and confusion. As if unable to comprehend why my emotions had collapsed so completely, he quickly surrendered. I'm not angry anymore. He stroked my back gently, comforting me with each touch. Can you stop crying now? I promise. No one will dare ignore you from now on, let alone scold you. His lips moved, but gradually I could no longer hear his voice. Cold sweat broke out on my forehead, and after a dizzying whirl, everything went black as I fainted. When I woke up, I was already in the palace. The hall was utterly silent. Moonlight seeping through the latticed windows to spread a layer of snow-like radiance across the mats. Zhao Yu sat by the bedside, still holding my hand with one of his. He called my name twice, but I didn't want to respond, so I simply closed my eyes and pretended to be asleep. Are you this angry because you're jealous? Still groggy from sleep and having my thoughts exposed, I felt embarrassed. I pulled the blanket over my head and loudly protested. No, I'm not. he shook his head with a wry smile, not bothering to wait for my response, and began explaining in a gentle, unhurried tone. The Pingling calamity 6 years ago was a storm of bloodshed stirred by witchcraft accusations. The late emperor seized this opportunity to bring down the Kui family, and Zhao Yu was also demoted to his fiefdom in Yingzhou. Just as the court was in turmoil, the iron cavalry of Yuliang Kingdom pressed straight toward Tongyang Pass. The late emperor, fearing war, sought to send someone to the kingdom of Yuliang for a peace marriage, and ultimately chose Chen Wanning, the daughter of the Western Expedition General. Sending the daughter of a border general for a peace marriage was the ultimate gesture of appeasement. Empress Kui had raised Chen Wanning by her side for several years. And Zhao Yu had always treated her like a younger sister. Now that the kingdom of Yuliang had been defeated, Chen Wanning returned to her homeland and was able to annul her marriage with Prince Mingchuan. Yet she harbored thoughts of seeking death. She wanted to see Zhao Yu, and he went to visit her only because he didn't want to disappoint a loyal subject. Moreover, the main reason he left the palace was actually to bring me back, the one who was so happy abroad that I'd forgotten home. I pulled the blanket down slightly, peeking at him with just my eyes. So, she isn't your white moonlight? Zhao Yu shook his head with a laugh. You didn't actually believe the plot Yin Zihang spun, did you, Ningning? Since I share your pain, wouldn't neglecting and mistreating you just bring misery upon myself? Turns out Xiaolian, worried about me, had already told Zhao Yu everything about the Lantern Festival incident. During my unconsciousness, Zhao Yu went to see the imperial preceptor and learned the truth from him. My face flushed slightly as I stammered, if not because of the plot, why would you like me then? I can't play the piano well, can't sing well, and only manage to study passably. I'm always causing you trouble. Being irresistibly nice to me because the plot demands it, that sounds much more reasonable. But when I'm with you, I'm very happy. Moonlight melted into his eyes. So tender it seemed to brim with liquid warmth. Seeing you lost in thought makes me happy. Eating the pear pastries you make makes me happy. Taking care of you makes me happy. And handling your little troubles day after day makes me happy too. He gently stroked my hair and said, perhaps when I was 12 and a little girl asking me for snacks made me laugh. Liking her became the easiest thing in the world. When I was little and got lost in Yunju. It was a very handsome but cold-faced older brother who found me. I threw off the covers and sat up excitedly, exclaiming, then was my little rabbit also a gift from your majesty? Yes, I just didn't know you were allergic to rabbit fur back then, let alone that you'd risk getting pockmarks to keep it for several years. He pulled me into his arms, gazing at me intently. I know my own heart very well. I'll always treat you right, so you won't die this autumn. Our Ningning will live a long life. Yin Zihang's mission is doomed to fail, but there's one thing he got right. Zhao Yu's hand gently touched my abdomen. There really is a little one here now. There was no white moonlight hidden in his heart. I wouldn't die, and what's more, I was going to become a mother. Life seemed to burst into springtime in an instant. I was so overwhelmed by waves of happiness that tears began pattering down my cheeks. Why are you crying again? Zhao Yu flustered about wiping my tears when I suddenly remembered something. If you've liked me all along, then how can we ever untangle this connection between us? I'm afraid it's impossible to untangle. He smiled with utmost tenderness and whispered in my ear, yet I wouldn't have it any other way. Extra story. Zhao Yu, spring of the 3rd year of Chongning, Changsheng Hall. Jiang Ning lay faintly asleep beneath the lake blue gauze curtains, her face pale to the point of translucence. Zhao Yu gazed at the culprit before him, lost in thought. The past year had been the darkest period of his life. His body always felt inexplicably unwell. Sometimes it was his head, sometimes his stomach, sometimes his knees, and every month there were always a few days when his stomach ached terribly. Imperial physicians came in waves, all declaring His Majesty to be in good health, with a pulse no different from ordinary people, because of these sudden, unpredictable pains. Zhao Yu's dignity as the son of heaven was almost shattered to pieces. In June, he fell from his horse during a hunt in the imperial grounds. In July, while inspecting the outskirts of the capital, he performed a sudden illness for his close ministers. By August, he even fainted right in the middle of the court. This thoroughly frightened several ministers who were being reprimanded by him at the time, angering the emperor. What a grave crime that would be. Likely not even exterminating 9 generations of kin would suffice as punishment. After repeating this cycle for nearly half a year, Zhao Yu finally found a way to cope. This pain feels as though it doesn't truly belong to me. Each time the pain subsided, he showed no trace of the weakness expected from someone in his condition. Moreover, as long as he focused his will to ignore the sensations, he could maintain full consciousness. Though his strong willpower could prevent him from fainting at inappropriate moments, he truly didn't want to endure this pain any longer. Zhao Yu often pondered the reasons behind it. Could it be that all these years of rising early and retiring late to handle state affairs have caused some strange illness? Or was it that his sins of patricide and fratricide were so grave that heaven willed to punish him? He, who had never believed in gods or Buddhas, approved the Ministry of Works budget for renovating the state temple and also began to carve out a little more time for rest. Yet there was no improvement at all. It wasn't until he passed by the imperial garden and witnessed the Jiang beauty being bullied by his distant cousin that everything gradually became clear. The beautiful Jiang on the bed opened her eyes and timidly called out, "Your Majesty." Zhao Yu gazed at the girl before him. Her delicate, somewhat frail appearance held a rare and exquisite beauty seldom seen in this world. No wonder the Pei family chose her. Zhao Yu had no mind to appreciate beauty at the moment. He threw back the covers and swiftly pinched Jiang Ning all over her body, causing faint blushes to rise on the girl's pale cheeks. As his conjectures were gradually confirmed, Zhao Yu's heart grew colder and colder. He had murder in his heart. He gripped Jiang Ning's throat, his expression dark and menacing. The pressure in his hand gradually increasing, the already frail girl grew even more lifeless. But it wasn't just her who couldn't catch her breath, he couldn't either. Zhao Yu released his grip, and they both began to cough. Who would have thought that His Majesty, the great Emperor of Dhe himself, would share the pain of one among his 3,000 decorative harem women? This matter was truly bizarre. Zhao Yu lamented indignantly, inadvertently revealing the truth of the matter. The girl who had just recovered couldn't help but laugh at his words. Her smile was beautiful, like moonlight breaking through clouds or a spring breeze caressing one's face. Even after all these years of Zhao Yu's abstinence from women, his heart still skipped a beat. But this fleeting excitement was soon replaced by fury. The Pei family's wolfish ambitions had been evident for quite some time. If all this was their deliberate doing, it would indeed be a thorny problem. In the dim candlelight, Zhao Yu quietly gazed at the two jade pendants in his hand, feeling as though heaven was playing a cruel joke on him. Only if the two of them truly loved each other could this special bond be broken. Utterly absurd. After all, he had long sworn an oath that he would never fall in love with any woman. In Zhao Yu's childhood memories, his father had deeply loved his mother. The emperor would bury peach blossom wine with the empress beneath spring trees, dress as ordinary spouses to release lanterns on the long river during the Lantern Festival. They visited taverns to listen to storytelling, set off fireworks from the city towers, and ate wontons at night markets. Though the harem housed many consorts, Zhao Yu often found such love hypocritical, yet the empress remained the most exceptional among them. Thanks to this, both he and his elder sister enjoyed an entirely carefree childhood. Yet in the end, he never lived to see those beautiful youthful years. Since grandfather's passing, when the Kui family lost its power, Father Emperor changed. The tenderness in his eyes when he looked at Mother Empress vanished. He brought back his childhood sweetheart, who had waited for him in a small pavilion for years, into the palace. He tore off the mask he had worn for so long, allowing his favored consort to bully and frame Mother Empress. The all-night Qin music from Yuntai Palace couldn't win back Father Emperor's heart, and the officials promoted by the Kui family were repeatedly demoted in court. But who was grandfather? The Kui family's roots ran deep. When he decided to support an obscure prince to ascend the throne, he had already left behind a hidden card. 2 years had passed when Father Emperor stepped into the Cloud Terrace Palace once more, holding Mother Empress's hand. He claimed that treacherous officials had clouded his vision, making him blind to her unwavering devotion. That wise sovereign, tender husband, and loving father seemed to have returned overnight. Mother Empress soon lost herself again in the illusion woven from love's name. The snow fell heavily that night as Zhao Yu knelt before his mother, begging her not to hand over the command token. The Willow Barracks, it was his grandfather's lifelong work, the Kui family's last talisman of protection. But the Empress Dowager merely stroked his forehead and said, "Be good, Yua, your father has already changed his mind. He only needs the Willow Barracks to deal with Duke Zheng." When he exposed his father's true intentions, his mother's eyes filled with madness and disbelief, and she struck him across the face. Zhao Yu watched all this unfold before his eyes, with no room for reversal. When the last shred of restraint vanished, how could Zhao Qi possibly spare the Kui family? The disaster of Pingling implicated over 3,000 people, high and low alike. The capital was practically awash in rivers of blood. Zhao Yu gazed silently at the stars above, his heart in ruins and covered with scars. Among the dead were his childhood tutor who had taught him since boyhood, his uncle who had always doted on him, and his study companion who was like a brother to him, he didn't understand why Zhao Qi had spared him, his mother, and his two siblings. Perhaps it was to demonstrate benevolence to his subjects, or perhaps it stemmed from sheer arrogance, having cut off the Kui family as his wing. What storm could a weak woman and her children possibly stir up? He resented his father's cold indifference and despised his mother's blind devotion, so he rebelled. At the age of 18, he fought his way from Yingzhou all the way to the capital, leaving weeds to regrow. Zhao Qi was destined to die by his hand. Everything about Jiang Ning was contained within the booklet before her. The youngest daughter of a minor official in the Ministry of Revenue, frail and sickly, her mother hailed from the Yunju Shen family, loved rabbits but was allergic to their fur. She went missing for 7 days at the age of 5. Some memories began to surface unbidden. It was the summer when I turned 13. As Yunzhou's great drought ended and welcomed the first rain of the season, Zhao Yu carried a box of yunpian cake. Walking down the street that had just regained its former bustle, yunpian cake was his mother's favorite. The yunpian cake from Baiwei Tower was renowned as the best. Yunzhou wasn't too far from the capital, making it convenient to send someone to deliver it to his mother. Grandfather had just passed away, and now he had been reprimanded by the emperor for lacking virtue, ordered to remain in Yunzhou for self-reflection. His mother, the empress, must be deeply saddened. The entire city knew of Yunzhou's governor, Zhu Yi, and his cruelty toward the people, embezzling funds and grain. Though he had earned the emperor's rebuke, as the crown prince responsible for disaster relief and pacifying the people, Zhao Yu did not regret his actions. Yet just moments ago, his attendant had delivered a letter from his mother. In it, she questioned why he had dealt with Zhu Yi. Showing no regard for her position in the imperial harem, Zhu's concubine had already come to trouble her. She demanded his promise that he would never again provoke the emperor's displeasure. The cloud slice cake in his hand seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. The streets were bustling with crowds, and the cries of street vendors rose and fell in waves. Zhao Yu numbly waded through the lively commotion of others when suddenly, a little girl as delicate as carved jade tugged at his hand and gave it a gentle shake. "Big brother, can I have a bite of your cloud slice cake?" The little girl wore a peach-pink dress, her hair tied into 2 small braids, her starry eyes fixed on the pastry in his hand. Hearing the girl's soft, sticky sweet voice, Zhao Yu felt his heart inexplicably soften a little. He opened the bag, handed a pastry to the little girl, and patted her head as he asked, "Are you alone? Where are your parents?" The little girl nibbled on the treat, her eyes crinkling with a smile. "Mom and Dad are at home. My brother brought me out to buy snacks, but he disappeared. Seems like another unreliable older brother." Zhao Yu asked patiently, "Where do you live?" "I live in the capital city. Have you ever been there, big brother?" In spring, peach blossom pastries grow on trees. In summer, little chilled cakes sprout from the grass. Autumn brings sugar-roasted chestnuts, and winter turns them all into plum blossom pastries. Zhao Yu fell silent. Children don't lie, but children do talk nonsense. "My name is Ningning. What's your name, big brother?" "Zhao Yu." "Oh, brother Xiao Yu." Zhao Yu fell silent again. After picking up the little girl, he questioned her for quite a while. But unfortunately it was like a chicken talking to a duck. Nothing useful came out of it. After all, he was the one who found her, so he couldn't just abandon her on the streets again. Thus, he brought the little girl back to his mansion in Yunzhou and ordered his subordinates to help find her parents. With her big, misty eyes glistening, the little girl looked at the assortment of pastries on the table and planted a loud kiss on Zhao Yu's cheek. "Brother Xiao Yu is so nice. Mama never lets me eat this much at home." A child's happiness and sincerity are so simple. Zhao Yu couldn't resist pinching the little girl's cheek, finding this statement quite endearing. But he soon understood why her mother didn't let her eat so much. When night fell, the little girl clutched her stomach in pain, tears streaming down her face, leaving Zhao Yu no choice but to massage it for her. He summoned the imperial physician, only then realizing just how fragile this child's health truly was. He had a weak stomach, suffered from mild asthma, and worst of all, had a heart condition. Zhao Yu felt a headache coming on. That sickly little kitten of a girl, he better not end up killing her by raising her. Since he had just been scolded by his father and had nothing else to do anyway. In the following days, a small figure appeared in the courtyard where the grass reflected on the steps. Zhao Yu watched over her every day. He taught her how to write, took her kite flying, braided her hair, and even gave her a rabbit. When he was lost in thought, the little girl would run over and give him a small hug. "Big brother, why are you sad? A hug will make it better." At that time, Zhao Yu didn't understand why his heart had melted so completely. Only through mutual love could the connection be broken. Then let's fall in love first. After all, he wasn't the type for long-term affection anyway. Zhao Yu decided to start with companionship. On the first day summoning Jiang Ning to the imperial study, Zhao Yu hadn't yet decided what to have her do, so he simply let her sit to one side. After reviewing only a few memorials, he looked up and noticed the girl staring at him with wide, unblinking eyes. Every time he glanced her way, she would flash him a sweet smile. After several such exchanges, Zhao Yu found his grip on the brush becoming unsteady. He probably still wasn't accustomed to having someone by his side. He immediately made up his mind he had to find something to keep her occupied, so he had Jiang Ning memorize his life story and preferences. With stacks of case files piling up like small mountains, she surely wouldn't have time to keep staring at him so foolishly. What Zhao Yu didn't expect was that this little girl was quite clever. She quickly mastered about 80 to 90% of the historian's rhetoric, leaving him with no grounds to criticize her further, but he soon wanted to take back that thought. Still a fool, doesn't even know to fight back when hit. When Consort Yun slapped Jiang Ning, he was genuinely furious. He personally oversaw every aspect of her daily life, the clothes she wore, the food she ate. After painstakingly nurturing her for so long, watching her take medicine day after day, he'd finally managed to bring some healthy color to the girl's cheeks. How could anyone dare to hit her? They must have a death wish. He sentenced Consort Yun to punishment almost without a second thought. During dinner back at the palace, he asked her why she allowed herself to be bullied and why she didn't stand up for herself. Didn't he share her pain? And now, for some inexplicable reason, they had to fall in love to break this connection. In Zhao Yu's eyes, she only needed to employ the slightest trick or even no trick at all to strut through the palace as she pleased. But this fool told him she didn't want to change fathers. Zhao Yu found it amusing. The Jiang family had 3 daughters, yet they sent the frailest and most sickly youngest daughter into the palace. If he hadn't brought her back, would she have survived this winter in that state? Clearly. She was the child her parents had weighed and discarded, yet she still carried herself as if she were loved by all. Later, Jiang Ning told him that she had mixed peanuts into her sister's peach blossom pastries, causing them to break out in rashes. That was how she ended up being the one sent to the palace. Zhao Yu thought her even more foolish then. What an idiot. Since he didn't know what to have her do, he decided to develop her comprehensively in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. He found her the finest teachers, yet somehow, as the lessons progressed, he ended up teaching her himself. He wanted her to grow fangs and claws, to see the world's truths clearly, to learn how to protect herself, so he had her read books, but none containing the teachings of sages. The Pei family finally found an opportunity to send a message to Jiang Ning, asking her to help consort Li win favor. When Jiang Ning invited him to admire the moon, Zhao Yu felt a headache coming on. It seemed all his efforts during this time had been in vain, but he never expected that she would actually kiss him outright. It felt like he'd drunk too much Luofu spring wine, or as if a feather was tickling the depths of his heart. Alright then, he'd reluctantly make this trip. He soon regretted it. Watching her eagerly push him toward others, his anger grew. The farce ended with them falling into the lake, and he couldn't help but lose his temper with her. Perhaps she was truly frightened, for she had an episode of her illness. Zhao Yu felt an inexplicable surge of fear, though it had been a long time since he'd experienced such an emotion. After she took her medicine and fell asleep, the 2 jade pendants in his hands emitted a gentle glow. The phoenix pendant had many floating patterns, but the dragon pendant, representing his own affection, was nearly brimming with them. Zhao Yu couldn't decide which was more dangerous, sharing her pain sensations or genuinely falling in love with her. He clearly didn't need love, though he had her moved out of the Hall of Eternal Life. He remained deeply uneasy, so he completely severed her ties with the Pei family. He arranged for her relatives to be cared for, and fearing she might misbehave, even stayed up several nights drafting a code of conduct for her. This way, life should return to peace. Right, during the autumn hunt, she was being unruly again. A dull pain throbbed in her stomach. The mountain path was rugged, and Zhao Yu knew she couldn't take it anymore. He waited for a long time, but the line still didn't move. This fool, if she's unwell, why doesn't she call for the imperial physician? He was somewhat angry and didn't want to bother with her anymore. But then he remembered last time when he fed her medicine and called her troublesome. She had cried. She dared not summon the imperial physician. Could it be because of her own words? Remembering her tears, his heart suddenly ached. In the end, he still went to see her. She leaned limply against the carriage wall, pitiful as a little kitten. Later, she was drugged, her cheeks flushed crimson, looking utterly docile as she clung to him. Whimpering about how unwell she felt, she tore at his clothes, she kissed him fiercely, with countless tiny joys. His heart suddenly brightened. Like moonlight filtering through leaves in scattered fragments, all his resistance had crumbled into utter defeat. Later, when he was overwhelmed by the affairs of the Willow Camp yet desperately longed for her embrace, he knew he was utterly lost. When the assassination attempt came, he could think of nothing else. He shielded her in his arms as arrows rained down from the sky, piercing his shoulders and tearing through his chest, yet as long as he saw the person in his arms was unharmed, he could breathe a sigh of relief. The hidden guards would arrive soon. He endured the excruciating pain and entrusted her with many matters. To his surprise, he survived, and his little girl handled everything perfectly, not disappointing him in the slightest. Zhao Yu could sense that Jiang Ning had something on her mind. In the past, when he was busy, she would read storybooks, play leaf cards, listen to the palace maids gossip, and amuse herself to her heart's content, always finding ways to keep herself happily occupied. But now, she had become very clingy. Whenever she saw the wounds on his body, she couldn't help shedding tears, yet she insisted on changing his dressings herself. After his injuries improved somewhat and he resumed attending court, her face would turn red from the cold, but she still waited for him in front of the Hall of Supreme Harmony. At night, even when drowsy and disoriented with sleep, she stubbornly remained in the imperial study. When he urged her to rest, she would put on a pitiful, tearful expression. Sometimes she would even murmur in her sleep, saying she couldn't bear to part with him, after doing so many unusual things. This fool still thought he was hiding it well, but it doesn't matter. If she wasn't willing to say it, then he would wait patiently, until the day she was ready to speak. What couldn't he settle for her? She didn't keep him worried for long. She quickly adjusted herself and even started having wild fun more joyfully than before. When New Year came, she said she wanted to go home, though he desperately wanted her company. Seeing the hesitant look in her eyes, he couldn't bring himself to say no. In the dimly lit palace, Zhao Yu gazed at the unconscious girl in his arms, overwhelmed with remorse. He had promised not to be harsh with her, yet he'd failed again. Wouldn't it be better if someone accompanied her as she grew up, so she wouldn't always be alone? He shouldn't have lost his temper with her. After taking her pulse, the imperial physician announced she was with child. He couldn't suppress his worry and questioned the imperial physician in detail, his words laced with unmistakable threats. Fortunately, the physician assured him that although her body was weak, with proper care, both mother and child would be safe. His warm palm gently caressed her belly. No one could fathom just how overjoyed he was. It was nothing short of a miracle, the continuation of life itself. This is their child, she is beautiful, and he is not bad-looking either. The little one is bound to be adorable, perhaps resembling both him and her. The entire hall knelt down to offer congratulations, but the young maid who had always stayed by her side showed no sign of joy on her face. Zhao Yu pointed his long sword directly at Yin Zihang's throat, forcing the truth from his lips. But perhaps even without the sword, Yin Zihang would have spoken. When Yin Zihang was sent here, the system told him that although the plot needed fixing, the lifelines of characters in the novel's world would not change. So, leveraging his foreknowledge, he stirred up storms and waves in this world. His prophecy allowed the people of Dewdrop Village to escape the flood. And he provided them with resettlement supplies. The villagers revered him as if he were a deity, though they would later encounter the plague in Wutong Town, who said helping others must be carried through to the end. After all, they were just paper-thin characters, merely following the script to do what they were meant to do. Besides, those destined to die would die anyway. He didn't feel particularly guilty about it. Yet 2 months ago, a minor character who should have died last year appeared before him, alive and well. He suddenly realized that the system had deceived him. He went to Wutong Town again. The epidemic had gradually subsided, but every household bore the pain of lost loved ones, and every home echoed with wails of sorrow. Xu Pingping, that warm and radiant girl who had always adored him, had also lost both parents to the plague and was reduced to singing in taverns. After we came to our senses, he pinched me everywhere: arms, thighs, cheeks, practically my entire body. I'm giving up on this mission. Treat the female lead well. You'll be controlled by the plot to fall in love with her, to share her pain. None of this is her fault. In Yin Zihang's impression, Zhao Yu possessed many characteristics of a male lead from a tragic romance novel. His past experiences had made him cold, obsessive, and incapable of love, leaving him blind to his own heart. Such men often wavered between several women, despising being controlled by love. If they loved someone, they would neglect and ignore her, only to regret it deeply once they lost her. In short, They were just making trouble for themselves. That was why Yin Zihang gave such advice. When Zhao Yu heard these words, he found them utterly ridiculous. How could he possibly think it was her fault? His heart ached for her. Like his own mother, she was merely a victim. His mother grew up surrounded by boundless affection, yet was stripped of her free will, disregarding familial bonds and human ethics, ultimately bringing ruin upon her entire family. As for his little girl, she never once knew the blessing of a healthy body. What they lost, was any of it less precious than a man's fleeting favor? The moonlight, clear and tender, filtered through the phoenix trees in the courtyard, casting its glow upon the woman's serene sleeping face. Zhao Yu tiptoed into the palace, bent down, and kissed Jiang Ning's face. When she woke up, he would tell her that they still had a long, long life ahead of them.